Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Marlborough Township Board of Education workshop meeting for November 12th. Cindy, please call roll.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Dean?
Here.
Mrs. Annie?
Here.
Mrs. Cowley's not here. Mrs. Lou Riddell?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. Matos?
Here.
Mrs. Rosenwald?
Here.
Mrs. Wolf?
Here.
And Mr. Lulonsky's not here yet.
Okay, please be advised that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231P, L, 1975 Sunshine Law, and that adequate notice of the date, time, and agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the news transcript and has been posted and filed with the Marlborough Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but we have a statement of videotaping of the public portion. Please take notice of that. And public session statement, please look that over.
Bless you.
Bless you. And there's no smoking on school grounds. Can everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I think, Eric, we have a presentation.
We moving the referendum discussion up?
I'm just going to go, this would be for public session. Hi, everybody. Oh, that was weak. Hi, everybody.
It's nice to see you. So we've had a lot, and I've had a lot to think about over the past several days, considering that our referendum went down approximately 4,200 to 1,800, which was approximately a 70% to 30% margin, which is pretty staggering. So one of the things that leaders have to do is to be reflective and to figure out, is there anything possibly that we did not consider to begin with? The Board of Education really hasn't engaged in anything that I'm going to talk about right now. There's been a few smaller conversations, but we're at a point where the board has to decide which way we go for our two separate projects. So we had the capital and infrastructure, and then we had full day K. When we initially looked at all of our options, we really looked at, in totality, could we put fifth grade to the middle school? Could we build on? We looked at everything. We looked at everything to figure out, could we physically fit our children? The only thing, as I reflected over the past several days, that we didn't look at would be our elementary computer labs. What we have is we have a push-in computer model at the elementary school, and we have double-sized computer rooms, and there is one in each elementary school. So, Board of Education, I'm going to present some thoughts, both of which have merit, and then I want to hear what you have to say. So, an option, and I don't know if this option would be viable or if it would work, is to renovate those computer labs, which would operate 10 classrooms at the elementary schools, and then you would have to then look at Abbott, and you would have to house certain of our children for a full day K. What would that mean if we looked at that option? What it would mean is that on the very surface, and this has really just been scratched, is that there would be on the surface an inequity for our kids, because you would have 10 classrooms approximately that would operate in our elementary schools, and then you'd have certain kids that would attend Abbott. So, like I said, that really is just a very scratch on the surface that would need a much deeper dive. But I think that when it comes to a 70% to a 30% margin, deeper dives are required, because I, in my heart, don't think, no matter what we do, I don't think full day K is going to pass on its own merits. I just don't. Could I be wrong? I sure could be. But my inner id tells me that it's not going to go. And I feel that that's not a defeatist attitude. Sometimes we have to, unfortunately, be realistic and say, it just might not go. And if it doesn't go, then we have to think about, what do we value? And I stand in front of you saying that, when we embarked on this journey 2 years ago, we really had a non-push-in model and now we do. Do I think losing the computer lab at the elementary schools is a great thing? No, we don't think it's a great thing. However, we do have Chromebooks in all of our grades 2 through 8, and then tablets in grades 1. So we have a device in every classroom, and we have computer teachers that could push in. So could we sacrifice that space for full day K? We could, especially if I stand in front of you and say how important early childhood is. Could we make it work? Now, there's a very distinct possibility that would not work. There really is. So when we sat down and we flush out numbers, it may not be where we could get the classroom sizes to even be in the 25, 26 range. It may not work. But if I at least, now that I have this knowledge as a leader and I'm looking to explore something, I think it's disingenuous to not at least bring this up as a point of discussion, because it is something that I think that we should 100% do more than scratch the surface on, being that I haven't considered that point in the past. Now, the question that constantly comes up is, well, are there other classrooms you can take as well? And very randomly there are, but I will be very emphatic that is not a good option. It's just not. So right now at Asher Holmes, there's not one room to be had. Okay? At Robertsville, all of his rooms are being used. However, you could put OT, PT on a cart, and you could combine a special ed room that would get you approximately 2 rooms. But that is short-sighted, because what could happen is on any given day, your class sizes or your sections could raise or lower by 2 to 3. And that could happen depending upon the influx of children. So the way that I see this is going with the 70% to 30% margin is that really there are 2 options here. The first option would be to put kindergarten on hold and explore and go after the capital. When we had our PTA, our PTO meetings, and we discussed options with the community, consistently what we heard was that they wanted 2 questions. I'd like 2 questions. They wanted the opportunity to voice their opinion, and in my opinion, most of that was, we get the capital. We get it. We don't love it. We don't love our taxes raising at all. But we understand that your boilers are 50 years old. We understand your unit ventilators are 50 years old. We understand that has to be done. But for the most part, we don't really think you need full day K. And that was the honest opinion that came. And you had outliers that thought that they loved both, and you had people that didn't like either. And it really ranged across the board. The 70% to 30% defeat, to me, is telling. Now, whether or not it's telling just because it was the mayor's election or not, we never will know. So, in my opinion, aside from not doing anything, and we really need to address our capital improvements, there's no doubt about that. That is something we absolutely need to do. There are essentially 2 options. The first option is to continue to scratch the surface on whether or not we can fit with the computer labs and to separate it into 2 questions and give the public the opportunity, so at the end of the day you gave them 2 bites at the apple and no one can come back and say that we did not. The other option is to hit the pause button on full day K, just go after capital, and then try to address our capital and infrastructure problems, all the while trying to make the formulation of the second plan work. Both of which have merits. I think there'll be divided opinions on the Board of Education, and I think it's worth a discussion. However, I want to be very clear. I wasn't disingenuous about the number of rooms. When we embarked on this venture over 2 years ago, I don't think giving computer labs up was a good thing. And at that moment, it wouldn't have been something we discussed, because when I first came to the district, I think we had about 3,000 Chromebooks. We weren't one-to-one. So we didn't have enough to completely abandon computer labs. Now we do. We do. And it could be an option that we could explore. So, Board of Education, I can't give you deeper answers on can we fit in public and will it work. The answer is it may and it may not. It may work right now, and in 3 years from now, it may not work. Our enrollment will climb 100%. And if it keeps climbing the way that it looks like it could climb, you're going to be at a spot where at some point you may not be able to fit what you currently have. But at the end of the day, what I will say is this. A split of our children will not be a perfect system. It will not be. Could we still deliver a Marlboro quality education? Absolutely, we could. Has nothing to do with instruction. We can make great instruction happen. Our teachers can make great instruction happen anywhere. Our children can make it happen anywhere. But if full day K will not be an option by passing the bond, then we have to weigh out whether or not we value full day K looking imperfect. And that's the question that we have to struggle with, and we have to make the best decision for our children. If personally, and this is strictly me, if I was given the opportunity to discuss half-time or full-time, personally, as Eric Michael Hibbs, I would discuss full-time any way that it could look. But the fact that Abbott is already a half-day building, the 70-30% I think has to be taken into account. Okay? Those are two things that we need to discuss.
Sir, sorry I missed the beginning of your presentation. I had emergency at work before I left the house. Delayed me a few minutes. Dr. Hibbs did call me right before I got here today to tell me a little bit about his presentation, so I'm familiar with what he just spoke about. I was very delighted to see that he took the initiative again. And look, sometimes I go home from work and a problem for weeks and weeks it comes on. I lay in bed, look at the ceiling, and all of a sudden, boom, comes the answer. So I appreciate the fact you did look again. The board will discuss it under number 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get to it, and thank you for your presentation.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we're going to ask everything. No other communications or anything? We're all good.
No, sir, that's it.
All right, so we'll open up public session, open to any item. So you have your cards. We have an hour to go to public session. As always, we answer all questions as we can at the end of public session. And Cindy will hold up the yellow card when a minute is up, and the red card when the time is up. I just need a name and address at the microphone. Oh, I also want to, before we go on, just give me 1 minute, I want to congratulate the winners of the Board of Education election. Robin, Mr. Shippenson. I don't know if Mrs. Zhu was here, but congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
And we'll welcome you to the board in January.
Thank you.
So,
Sign in.
talk.
You write slowly. Okay, first name, Edwin Midori.
Edwin Madari, 2 Regal Drive, Morganville, New Jersey, 07751. President, Vice President, Dr. Hibbs, members of the board, and the administration, thank you for giving me this opportunity to address you. I have a couple of things that I want to bring up. The very first thing, congratulations to the winners of the board members, but at the same time, I want to reiterate that, and I request the President reiterating that this board has been apolitical, and I would appreciate that everybody keeps it apolitical. I lost 5 times, but never had an inkling of trying to reaching out to any political sources to make me win. If anybody is interested or passionate about this education, show the passion, but not please bring politics into the board. Next one, I'm sorry, I was here and I went on record to say that I'm against the referendum. And yes, I confess that I went door to door to canvass against it. And like I said, then and now, there is at least 800 difference between the peak time in the Marlboro strength and today's strength. Dr. Your own report of September says about 4,000 odd kids at this, 5,080 I believe at September. So 6,100, there's 1,000, but let's say 800 divided by 24 is about 30 classrooms, sir. So I think there is a scope or an opportunity to look at what's going on. I'm willing to provide any assistance from my end. If there is a re-arm needed, and if the parents need to be contacted, or the town needs to be contacted, or the people needs to be contacted, I'm willing to go to door to make this happen, because not only I would like to see full-day kindergarten, but at the same time, I'm going to look out for the people in the town, seniors in the town, because one day I'm going to be a senior, and I would like the people to look out for me. And the last one I want to bring up is the upkeep and the maintenance. Honestly, sir, if there is any piece of equipment which is 40, 50 years old, please take a picture of it and send it to me. I will send it to IEEE, and there are a couple of other organizations, because this piece of equipment was manufactured in great US of A before the rise of other countries as manufacturing centers, and that's a thing of pride for everybody in America, and there are people who are willing to stake their name and willing to put their dollars where the mouth is to support that. Yes, look at this piece of machinery that has been working for 50 years. So let's pull up that. My maintenance records are anything, and give me information. I will go to the agencies and I'll try to get the money if it is truly 50 years. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Andrea Zeltzer, 6 Coleridge Drive, Marlboro. I have 2 topics I'd like to address. First of all is the new position that you're considering tonight to add I believe it's called a systems administrator, to deal with Genesis and some other items. I have a concern about the board adding another position administratively within the organization. If I understood it correctly, you're adding someone to deal with Genesis. There were 2 data analysts added this year. You've added Linkit to analyze data about our students. I just want to understand more about why we need yet another point of data on our students. The second topic is in regards to the referendum. I'd like to know if there was any exit polling done. If I understand the numbers correctly, about 70% of our voters voted no against the referendum. And I'd like to understand if there wasn't any exit polling done, how you can make decisions going forward if you don't know why it was voted down. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Strafasi.
Hello, James Strafasi, 25 Canadian Woods Road, Marlboro, New Jersey, 07746. I just have one thing I wanted to mention. I did not vote for a referendum simply because of full-day pre-K, or full-day K kindergarten. It wasn't due to capital improvements. I would like to have those done. So one of the things that struck me was an email that went out about fact versus fiction about the referendum. And in there, it said in 2009, there were 6 classrooms that could be added onto, I think it was DeFino, for $2 million. So I did the math and saw that, okay, well, that theoretically, I know it wouldn't be exact, but for roughly $10 million, you could put 2 classrooms on each of the 5 schools, 6 classrooms on each of the 5 schools, which would be 30 classrooms. I don't know if the numbers work out exactly, but it just struck me that it said it there in black and white. $2 million, 6 classrooms. A lot different than the $20 million that we're being asked to do for Abbott. So that really kind of swayed me a bit. So anyway, I know, Dr. Hibbs, you were talking about different ideas and different things you have to look at. So that was just something that struck me. And I don't, there's a much bigger picture, obviously, but I think it's something worth thinking about.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Alex? I'm going to mess this up, so.
And the next person as well.
No, it's got to be 2. If you're going to speak, you have to speak. So it's independent.
What's the last name, Sue?
Noskov.
Noskov.
Yes.
Okay.
NOS?
KOV.
Oh,
340
okay.
Bernard Drive.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Address,
well,
please?
You said
340 Bernard
Oh,
Drive.
I'm sorry.
So, with respect to, let's start with the current topic, referendum discussion. I grew up in a big city, and we had multi-story schools, right? And as you could see, I'm alive and safe, never had any problems with that. So my question to you is, why wouldn't you consider building multi-story schools? Because, and I understand why is, this whole country is single-story schools everywhere you go except the big cities, Brooklyn, Manhattan, but outside the big metropolitan areas, everything is single-story, right? If you build a multi-story school, let's say 5-6 floors, I'm sure it's not against the code here, right? The construction probably be a little cheaper. You can cut costs. I know you all guys part of the principals are part of the union, but you can cut costs on the principal because instead of having 30 principals, maybe you'll have 5 or 6. That will decrease the cost, from the, taxes that you collect for the schools, right? You'll still have the same number of teachers probably, but in terms of the upkeep, instead of upkeeping 30 schools, maybe you upkeep only 5 or 6 schools, and that, would be a lot cheaper. It's just think about it. The other topic that I would like to discuss is more related to my kids and Mrs. McDermott from Robertsville School. I'm sure probably, Mrs. Katie was supposed to be the class teacher. We had a different teacher. Then Miss McDermott is current teacher, and now we understand that she's going to be replaced eventually by Saketi. So in the first grade, I think it's difficult for kids to, they become heartbroken because when the first teacher left, my daughter came home and was crying. The same thing's going to happen when McDermott will have to leave. And I believe Stratic, promised us, verbally at least, nothing in writing, that he will keep McDermott in the class until the end of the year. But now I think he's backing away on his word as of yesterday. And the next person after me, she has the same question. She has the same issue. So we would like to voice our. I understand it's all union issues.
We respond at the end.
It's all the protection of the people, who serve, 10 years as a teacher in a job. We understand all that. Union protects the teachers. Question to you is, who protects our kids? Kids don't have union, right? So obviously there's a conflict of interest between union interest and kids' interest. So we, the parents, we're the ones who, I guess, the union, right, for our kids. So I'm raising this issue to you. When there's a conflict of interest, why does union interest have to prevail over the kids' interest?
Okay, we respond at the end of the public section. Ma'am? What, she was, yeah, you can, I just need your name and address.
Hi, wow.
It's working.
That's really, really loud. Hi, I'm Gloria Servac, 69 Enclosure Drive, 07751. So adding on to what Alex said, I'm not sure if you're aware of the situation that Ms. Saketi took leave early for first grade in Robertsville. At the beginning of the year, she took, I guess it was 3 days before school started, so they had to find a sub. There was a sub, first graders entering new school, lots of transitions, but she was okay. But then 3 weeks into it, we found out that that someone else was hired and that they were starting that week. Great, fine. But of course we're worried because these are 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and no matter if a teacher is good, bad, whatever they feel about her, they get attached because that's the age. Now, and then we were told when the new teacher was hired that this would be, even though Ms. Saketi was on leave, that she would be hired to be in the classroom for the year because the kids already had a rough start. Now we're being told that Ms. Saketi is coming back. She's a 10-year teacher. I keep hearing that word. I get what it means, but and Miss McDermott is not, and I do respect that, but at the same time, that's where I think Alex was saying, where unions and the tenure and, this is her classroom, I get that. But the kids are well-adjusted, they're finally in a great place, and now we're just going to pull the rug from out under them. And I, as a parent, am deeply concerned, because in comparison to the other first grade classes in the school, they have been given the short end of the stick throughout this whole year so far. And now this is going to happen again. Mr. Stradek had assured us that Ms. McDermott would stay. She's not staying. And then Ms. Sacchetti is coming in December. Again, we have to do this again with our kids, and I'm concerned with that. And it's disconcerting that that's where we're at. And I'm not sure that the Board of Ed can do something about it, but I guess I'm trying to advocate for my child because I am deeply concerned about this. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the referendum. I did vote for the referendum, even though I kind of only agreed with 50% of it, which was the kindergarten. I moved here 5 years ago from Brooklyn. Probably a majority of people here, we've heard this story before, for my older daughter to have good education, good life. And I remember hearing, we have part-time kindergarten. I was like, what do you mean? But it wasn't something that concerned me at that point. Because I was like, she's an infant, who cares? Not a big deal right now. Later, I'll think about it. Now we're talking about, she went to kindergarten last year, and we're still talking about the same things. And I have friends in Manalapan and Freehold everywhere, and everyone has full-day kindergarten. And I don't know what to say. It's sad to me that there isn't full-day kindergarten in our township. Capital improvements, the schools could use improvements, but not as much as our schools could use kindergarten. I went to school in Brooklyn. I know we just said that before with Alex, but our schools were by far worse, and we survived, and we got good educations, and we made it work. So I'm not sure how we're not making it work here. I did like Dr. Hibbs's idea. If there was an option, it would always be full-day kindergarten. I paid for the full-day kindergarten here because I believe that children need that at that age. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Miriam Abramson.
Hi, my name is Miriam Abramson, 4 Alberta Drive, Marlborough, New Jersey. Myself and most of the voters in Marlborough support full-day kindergarten and the renovations to the other buildings, and I'm a senior citizen and I support it. What we do not and will not support is the $46.5 million price tag. The first question I have is, why do we need 28 additional classrooms at the Early Learning Center? We have 5 full-day kindergartens and 4 half-day kindergartens. Where did you come up with the number of 28 classrooms? That I really am concerned about. I would like to know a breakdown of that. Okay, the voters voted 2-1 against this referendum. We've been talking about this for a year now. Why can't you put rooms on the buildings, the other buildings? I know you're going to say you can't do that, but just like the man said before me, if you put 2 rooms on each building and it's $2 million each, that comes out to $12 million, okay? I don't know where you got these numbers from, okay? You're not being fair to the taxpayers of this town, okay? It's not that we don't want full-day kindergarten, we do. Manalapan put it in. They didn't ask their taxpayers for $46 million, okay? Freehold put in full-day kindergarten. They didn't ask their taxpayers for this kind of money. The board needs to be working for the taxpayers, okay? We elected you, you're elected officials, and I don't feel that you're working for us. This referendum went down, and the people sent you a message that they will not put up with this number, okay? Manalapan we're the only ones who don't have it. It's a disgrace. It's really a disgrace that we don't have it. And we don't need a fancy gym or a fancy cafeteria at Milk. The people are paying over $5,000 with a makeshift cafeteria, and it's working out just fine, right? You're taking the money from them, and we don't need the fluff, okay? Marlboro likes fluff. They want to have a fancy gym. We don't need it. They're there for 1 year. We do need full-day kindergarten. Get rid of the fluff. Do the minimum. They're there 1 year. Or sell the building, get rid of Milk, okay? And add on, and use that money and put on extensions on the buildings. You have to go back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
Cindy Seeley.
Hi, I'm Cindy Seeley. I live in 31 Mark Drive in Englishtown. Both my children are students in Marlboro. My son is in kindergarten at the Early Learning Center, which is half day, and my daughter goes to Asher Holmes, and she's in second grade. Since the beginning of this discussion, I've always been supportive of full-day kindergarten. My daughter went to the Early Learning Center half day. She was the morning session. She would come home at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and at that time, my son, who's 2 years younger than she was, he was little, and I am a stay-at-home mom. I think there are a lot of stay-at-home moms in Marlboro, because honestly, I don't know what everyone is doing right now with half-day kindergartners. There are some enrichment programs, but my daughter would come home at 12:05, and we had the whole afternoon. And I don't know if you're familiar, but there are a lot of programs, but they're in the morning. They're not in the afternoon. And I didn't know what to do with her. And at the time, there was no homework. They did not come home with any homework. And I actually had asked the teacher, please, could you support me? I need some help. I want her to have homework. I want her to have discipline. And I did not get that support, unfortunately. My daughter is a smart girl, but she needs more discipline. So that's the first point I want to make, is that full-day kindergarten is important. Kindergarten is the foundation for all of the other education. There was a meeting I had attended in the spring when we were discussing this, and there was someone in the audience who said, hey, it's just kindergarten. But you know what? It's not just kindergarten. My daughter still writes her B's and D's backwards, mixes them up, because somewhere in kindergarten she got confused. She never had a problem in pre-K. It's just that it's important to look at kindergarten as a basis for the education that we're all so proud of in Marlboro. I mean, Marlboro has, you rave about the scores we get, how great the high school is and so forth, but we have to look at it at the basis. Separately, I would like to say that in the beginning, I was not supportive of building onto the school. I had a lot of concerns about the children going to school and it being unsafe. You did address those concerns that I had, that you would not be allowed to actually build while the children were in school, which is why they are not building up, because they would like to build while the children are attending so that we do not waste time. Is that correct? Okay. So that is why we're not building up. Another thing I would like to address is that, like I said, I was supportive of the whole referendum. Whoever came up here earlier and said that she did not support the revisions to the schools in the building structure has not been in the classroom in May or September or June when it's like 75, 80 plus degrees. It is hot in there. The kids are hot. They come home exhausted. They come home off the bus. It's hot. The teachers have to teach in this environment. So that's just a start for that. Something else I'd like to address is that Dr. Hibbs had mentioned the computer lab. I actually volunteer at Asher, and I help in the library. So I happen to be there today. So I would like to just mention to you that Mrs. Allen had a lesson there today in the computer lab. There were computers everywhere, but if the book fair wasn't there in the library, they could have easily had laptops or their Chromebooks and had the same kind of lesson in the media center that they had. I don't know how you would do it logistically, but they could do it. I've always been supportive of the idea of keeping our children together from kindergarten through, up to middle school. It's much easier for us as parents. I think it's easier transition for the children. It's very hard to manage the children in 2 separate schools. Some parents have 3+ children, and they're in 3 different schools, and all the emails that come home, it's a full-time job. The other thing I want to mention is that I'm here to support the children. Obviously, full-day kindergarten is not going to help my situation. I'm here to speak out, to hope that other families can have a better life, a better, more enriched education. I would have liked to start working this year. I would have liked my son, who is very bright and can read at a 1st grade plus level, I would have liked him to be at school all day, because when he gets on the bus, he's so excited. But instead, I put him in an enrichment program, and I have to pay for the enrichment program. It just would have been better for us overall. And that's it. That's all I want to say.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill Strafasi.
Jill Strafasi, 25 Canadian Woods Road, Marlborough. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for everything you do. You're volunteers. You're not paid. And some of you who are paid have very long commutes. Very, very long commutes, which I know well. So thank you. And I know you did, you really tried this past year to do what was best for our kids. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, and obviously I had no idea what Dr. Hibbs was going to propose. But coincidentally, I did my very own unscientific poll of Manalapan parents. I have 4 kids, and because 3 have gone through Manalapan preschools and kindergarten, and now my 4-year-old is now in pre-K at Manalapan. I know a lot of Manalapan parents. So I did a poll. And I was asking them, how to work out with your kindergarten. And just what Dr. Hibbs was saying, how it's imperfect, is actually a lot of the feedback I got from the mothers. They said, yeah, it's not perfect because, sometimes they're zoned for another school than where they're going to go next year. But they're like, but I'm okay with it. My kid's okay with it. And it was great. Our taxes weren't raised. So just to give you that feedback, that's kind of what I found out on my own. So I just wanted to mention that. And I'm also curious, and I know that Dr. Hibbs kind of only brought this up tonight, so I'm probably asking this far too in advance, but because I do have a son in pre-K, if the computer lab situation worked, would that mean we could possibly have full-day kindergarten next year? And I'm seeing a big no. Okay, I'll start saving my money for private kindergarten next year for kid number 4. And that's pretty much it. I was actually going to send an email to thank you all, because I know some of you are going to be leaving, but since I'm here, I'll just say it in person. And if someone could tell Mr. Dwyer, because I know he resigned, thank you as well. Thank you so much, and I know I've said this before to you, for supporting the musical theater program in the Marlborough schools. I was a school counselor. I was also, going back, I was a student in a school that did not fund musical theater well. And I really wish they had. And although I started off as a music major in college, it really hurt me not being in musicals. So it hurt me with the colleges I applied to, because my own high school and middle school had no funding for that. And then as a school counselor, I had kids that would come to me who weren't good at academics, who weren't good at sports. And I can tell you of at least 3 or 4 kids off the top of my head who would say, being in a play is the only thing that keeps me coming to school. And I had one child said it's the only thing that keeps me from killing myself. Because a lot of those kids that are attracted to musical theater are marginalized in other groups, and they feel like outcasts. But it's a very accepting environment. So that was the other thing. I just wanted to thank you, because I know, you passed the budget, and I believe, at least I'm guessing, at the Marlborough Middle School this year, the Peter Pan introduction may cost a little more. I'm not really sure, but you all approved that. So I really deeply appreciate it, because if you're a child with that interest and you don't get to have it, I'm so excited to see the kids have that. I get to live vicariously at least. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, boy. Fareed, yes. Instead of butchering their names, it's much easier.
Okay. Fareed Tarasuk, 193 Nantucket Place. This is actually the first time that I decided that I will come and talk. I have a 5th grader and 1st grader in Robertsville now. And the few things concern me, and first of all, of course, about the referendum. I did wait now, not because my two kids are already old enough and they're not going to go to kindergarten, but because my question was 4 years ago, right after my son graduated kindergarten, we implemented the program for a $5,000. From that moment, for the past 4 years, we collect $5,000 for each kid, 25, 4 classes. If you do a little math, we did collect money. And I want to know that why we can't use that money, where that money go, because we did collect them. They're not went for the teachers, because the teachers before who did half day, they did half day, and then they did the second half. And now they do full day. So why we can use the money that we are collecting for the past 4 years, maybe collect them for another year or two, and build the school. That's number one. Number two, I'm teaching myself. I teach 10 years in Brooklyn. I'm teaching now 6 years in Middletown High School. And I survived without air conditioning. I still look okay. So I think it's a more important priorities in school. And the air conditioning is very nice luxury, and we'll have to have it. But I'm more concerned about the technology, the Chromebooks, maybe bringing second language. I think those things, it's more important than the air-conditioned school for the 3 weeks of June and maybe a week or two in September. That's what I'm thinking. So now, what I want to talk about, though, and I know the people, especially the 4th and 5th graders, parents, as we all talk about, agree with me. I'm talking about the stress level that our kids going through, with the amount of work that they're getting, and they're 9, 10 years old, and with the amount of tracking that we're starting for them. I have a very, very competitive 9 years old who just turned 10 yesterday. He cries when he doesn't do good. He's in high level, math and English, he's in enrichment. The child spent 2.5 hours every day at 9-year-old. I have no time to go outside, we have no time to play, and I tell him, it's okay, you don't have to do it. But he wants to do it, he wants to do the best. He was always one of the top. And I'm saying to myself, is that what I want? I'm a teacher, and I'm very happy to have a child like this. But I'm saying to myself, is that okay that the child get 170 on a quiz and cry for 2 days, because that 70 brought his average from 100 to 93, and now my 9-year-old crying because, no, ma, you don't understand. I need a 95 because I want to be an honor. And I'm saying, but mistakes are okay. You're learning from the mistakes. But do we give them room to learn from the mistakes if every single little thing will count? If there's no room to go do the correction, it will not talk about what they're really learning. It'll be all about the numbers. Because that's how I feel we are. We're test after the test after the test, and it's all about the numbers. And if the 9-year-old have a bad day, and why he got 70, I look at the test. I teach physics and chemistry, AP physics, AP chemistry. I look at his math test, and he did 3-step problem right, and at the end he multiplied 2 by 3, having to being a child and write 7 because he got tired. But there's no room for partial credits. There's no room for anything. You either know or you don't. And if you don't, you get penalized. And this is what we are. And I think that's what we want to address. We really want to look at what we're doing here, what we're doing with our kids. We're telling our kids that you cannot have mistakes. You have to study 24/7 if you achieve something. And it's not me who pressure him. Some kids just are like this. And that's what concerns me. It's really concerning when the little kids go to school and you're only thinking about, I have to do good. I have to do good on the test. I have to do this. I don't think the value of learning, he doesn't go and say, I have to learn. It's all about testing. And I think that's a little bit of the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea Zeltzer.
Andrea Zeltzer, 6 Coleridge, 07746. I just wanted to address conferences. I would encourage all of the schools to be discreet in how they communicate the need for a conference. My child came home with a bright yellow piece of paper that was waved in front of her face and distributed out in the homeroom. That's not right. Every child should get some sort of notification, whether it be because they require a conference or they don't require a conference. With that said, though, I would like to recognize Mrs. CNC, a first grade teacher at Dugan. She handled this impeccably. My first grader did not get a conference this time, which I was fine with. What she did was She contacted each of the parents that she wouldn't be seeing this time. She was very clear about it. She said, I'm unable to meet with you at this point. However, I want to give you feedback. And these are your 3 options in how you can receive feedback. I can arrange a phone call with you. I can give you a detailed email, or I can meet with you in person at another time. Please specify how you would like to communicate about your child. So kudos to Mrs. Yancey. She did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I
Ask her a question, we can't go back and forth.
No, I just have to ask her a first question. Because it would make no sense if I didn't ask the question of her at that point. How do you know the yellow piece of paper was waved in her face and not put into a book bag or put into a book or into a book bag?
I may have been a little dramatic about waved in her face, but if your child's sitting in flex time at the end of the day, there's 28 kids in the class, and the teacher says, Lauren Zeltzer, yellow sheet.
Okay, that.
Child A, yellow sheet.
Anyone else in the public wish to address the board on any item? Seeing none, sir?
Okay.
Let me quickly address the exit poll question with an entry poll answer. I know some people here tonight were at the presentations at the middle school. I thank you again for being here tonight as well. If you were there, the biggest question and the biggest comment that I heard and other board members that were there was, we wanted 2 questions. Why were we forced to vote on both and not on one? And overwhelmingly, people that spoke were very firm in their beliefs that the way the board did it with 2 questions, take it or leave it, was not the way to go. And they would rather have seen the board do 2 separate questions. That was at every event we had, overwhelmingly. The other thing that came across to us as well was, why didn't you build the kindergarten right the first time? Why didn't you build all the classes needed the first time? So that kind of addressed a little bit of why you just can't build a couple classes here and there. If you're going to build, you build it right the first time, because as you saw, the construction cost today versus the construction cost yesterday versus the construction cost 3 years from now is crazy. Crazy. And that's another reason why we didn't add on to all the buildings, because adding on to the buildings, per our engineers, would even increase the construction costs exponentially to have separate jobs at each building. But the board will continue the discussion on the referendum. We'll talk about Dr. Hibbs' new ideas or discoveries when we get to that point.
Okay. I wish I had a magic solution. I really do. Abbott was built a half day. You know, I look into the mirror every morning, and I'm bald and short, and that's how God made me. And that's exactly what Abbott is right now. It's a half-day building, and there's not much we can do about that. And I think part of the reason why, in my heart, I feel as if full-day K will not pass is because we already have a building in place. We do. And I think that is part of it. The second part, as you mentioned, is obviously the $46 million price tag that comes associated with that. So I wish I had a magic solution for you. Jill, every time you stand up, you thank everybody. I can't tell you that, it's not often that we get thanks. And everybody here, I get paid to be here. Yeah, but these guys don't. And by guys, I mean everybody. And, we take a pounding sometimes. We really do. And look, that's what it is. I get up every day, and I know that's the deal. These people give up their time, and this is not easy for anybody. It's not. Look, at the end of the day, you can't fit the kids in. You just can't. You can't take your existing rooms and put it to capacity, because what happens when you need to open up a section? Because I'll tell you what will happen. I'll have my parents at Dugan, whose 3rd grade went from 21 to now 30, are going to yell at me because they don't match Morel. So any way you cut this, and I mean this respectfully, we always get hollered at. My Sophie at home, she gets hollered at all the time, kind of. It's just, no matter what you do, you're going to get it from somebody. So at the end of the day, there's no magic option here. There's not, and I wish there was, And, I really, I don't get nervous and sweat before board meetings. I don't. I've talked in front of my share of people. I was sweating today because when I have to stand up and say, I haven't really considered computer labs, I don't like doing that. I really don't. But I'll tell you what I like even less than that. I like even less than that, not standing up and being genuine about a thought process and then pursuing a different course. I think that's disingenuous. So I can't stand in front of you and tell you that at the end of the day, even if we can figure out, what that would look like with 10 rooms, could we still fit it and make it work? I can't give that answer in this moment. I can't. And I don't want to, because I want to give you the right answer. But I can tell you that I do believe it's worth looking at and pursuing. I really do. We obviously have embarked upon a course. My honest feelings, at 70% to 30%, I think we could split it, and I think it will. My gut tells me that the facilities portion will either pass or narrowly fail, because of the climate we're in, and I think kindergarten will be overwhelmingly defeated. So in that moment, I have to figure out, as a recommendation, which path we travel. And look, the path of putting the kids in an imperfect system is probably our best bet. It really is. Is it the bet that I would choose or would want if I had my magic Harry Potter wand? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do I regret that it went out as one question and the community could vote? I don't regret it, because you know what? You never know. You never know when you show up. You really don't. And every game can go one of two ways, regardless of the odds or who's playing. So, but when we have 70% versus 30%, because I think someone mentioned 2-to-1, it wasn't 2-to-1. I mean, 2-to-1 would have been better. It was 70-30. It's a monstrous defeat. So I think in that moment there has to be some real good hard reflections, and us looking and saying, is there really any other way? So like I said when I stood up in front of you, there really, in my opinion, there's three ways to go. We never have full day K in Marlboro, which I think would be a travesty for our children. I really do. And I think that if you could take money out of the equation, everybody in this room would raise their hands and vote in favor of full day K. It's kind of hard not to, because more instruction for our youngest learners is obviously better than less instruction. So the question now is, does it go as a separate question? And do I really just plan everything out to see if those numbers would work? And do we put an imperfect system in place that we know in 3 years, if we get more kids, we're going to have to do something with? Or do we simply not pursue that course right now? To me, I believe in full day K. I really do. I want to believe that I could make this work, but I want to be honest with not only the board, but also with you, that at the end of the day, I don't want to make a mistake that has huge ramifications for our kids. I don't. And I heard about protecting our kids. I'll get to the other point in a second. That I want you to know that regardless of you agreeing or not agreeing with every decision that we make, because you're never going to do that, and I think you realize that, I stand in front of you, and every day I think about what's best for our kids, 100%. Every day, the week, and twice on Sundays. And that's just the kind of person that I am, is that I always try to make us better. I always try to make things better for our kids, and that's what I think a good leader should do. So in this moment, I think trying to feel out whether or not those 10 rooms could make it work, I think it's worth exploring. I do. We have Chromebooks in the room. We are going to be looking at blended learning, in greater capacities in the future, where we're having technology for different levels of kids. We don't need those 2 rooms. Is it enough? I don't know in this moment, but we can figure that out. To talk about some of the other things that were asked of me. Edwin, I'm not sure the answer. Mark, help me. Is it feasible to give community members pictures of systems that we have that would be 50 years old? I don't know if there's any security risk with that.
What type of systems are you referring to?
Boilers. We're talking about big ticket items, unit ventilators.
We have the pictures on the presentation. But again, the component units are the component units. We've got to get rid of them to put the new ones in place.
Let's just stick to the.
No, just answer the question.
Yeah, the question of is there an issue of?
Yeah, as long as it's not a security feature, absolutely, I don't see a problem giving pictures of a boiler or some other system in the schools.
How about the associated part number that was with it?
I don't see a problem with it, but let me do a little more digging into it, and you and I can have a discussion about it offline. But my gut tells me I don't think it's an issue.
Okay, Mr. Mandari, I will discuss it with Mark, and I will get back to you. Fair enough? Okay. All right. Andrea, so you want to know why we need an extra data person? Let me clarify a few things. This is not an administrator. We are not adding. Is Andrea still here?
She's there.
Okay. We are not adding an administrator. We are also not adding a position. So what we're doing is that when we hired our previous person who took care of essentially everything NJ Smart and Genesis and then a lot of other duties as well, they were hired as a computer tech. We took a chance on a young man that ended up really being a diamond in the rough. And being a diamond in the rough, we hired him at a computer tech salary. He then took his knowledge as a smart person would and went and made more money somewhere else. So with that being said, this position is not administrative, and it's not going to be in addition to what was. We are eliminating the what was, and we are creating the what is. And we're doing that for a real simple reason. It's supply and demand. This person is critical. Absolutely critical to what we need to do in the district, managing our student information system, pulling out all kinds of state reports, which we do almost on a monthly issue, that directly tied to funding. So the board, we talked about this in time past. We had to make some changes to the job description, which would have included the education, and then we're going to post and we're going to look for the qualified candidate in roughly the $60,000 range. Because what happens is the Freehold Regional created this position. They stole Freehold Township. Freehold Township stole us. So it was this massive trickle-down effect where we don't want to be in a spot where every year I have a turnstile for a position that's really critical. We can't have that. So we're going to have to pay a little more to get someone in the seat that can do a really good job so they're not constantly looking over their shoulder. Will they or could they still look? I can't guarantee everything. But I can guarantee, and I think it was 41 as starting, they're going to take that knowledge and they're going to turn it to 60 or 70 or 80 in a heartbeat, and I can't blame anybody for it. So, but I just wanted to clarify that it was not an administrator.
And also, Dr. Hibbs, it's not an overlap either of the other data.
I think I said that, right?
Yeah.
No overlap. Yep, we're not. Yeah,
We're not filling the position.
Yeah, we're not. We are not filling the tech, because what happened was when we hired this young man, he kind of filtered into this role, and in the past we had transitioned from Power School to Genesis, and he then adapted to that role. We're looking for someone to fill that role out of the gate right now. Good. Mr. Strafaci, you would vote for the maintenance. When we talk about building just 2 rooms on, it's not always that simple as looking at what you did at DeFino and then saying I'm taking the $2 million and building on the 6 classrooms. Right. So what happens is that in order for us to do something like that, it's going to end up being 5 different projects. So in the end, it's going to cost. It might not cost $20 million. However, it will cost a very decent chunk of change. And when we looked at building on with the architects, those options were fully vetted through the board, and it was very clear based upon quantifiable facts that when you go after separate projects, it honestly costs more than it does to do one big project. I see you wanting to come at me. I can't let you because then everybody's going to want to. I'm happy to go off grid with you if you want to hang out or even talk later. But I want you to know that 100%, and you're talking, and that's the money that we had to go back and get the voter reapproval for, correct?
In 2009.
Yeah. So it wouldn't always be that simple to say, oh, you know what, you did 6 classrooms for $2 million. Could you do $2 million across the district? 2 times 5 is 10. First off, that was 2000. Was it 2009? So on 2015 costs, you're probably at least doubling, if not more. And then all of a sudden, you're in the same ballpark. But I want you to know that it's not as if our architect just actually came in and said, hey, by the way, take my word for it that building separately is more expensive. There's countless examples, and if you'd like me to gather some, I'll be happy to gather some from TED, where they can show you that to build one would cost X, and to build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would cost X plus Y.
There's also another component to that
Stan?
is that when you're building two-story, you need steel, a lot more steel involved, et cetera, and stuff. So there's a lot more involved in building the two-story than it is just on a concrete slab, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's very different. Plus, you've got an elevator going into that building, too.
And that was to Alex's point, I think, about, why are you not building up? We actually attempted to build up on this one. This one would have been 2 stories at Abbott if the plans would have been approved. But to say now build up, the milk's way out of the jug. It really is. You're not gonna sell a building. You're not gonna combine buildings in this moment. It's biting off way more than we could chew. We do have an issue we should deal with, but building up, you can't physically do it now. If you build up and over, and I think this was mentioned, you can't have kids underneath. So if to really talk about why we didn't build up to begin with, and I don't know what the local ordinance is and how high you could go.
5 feet.
35? Thanks, Bon.
Which is like 2 floors. And
2 floors?
Because then there's roofs.
We have the middle school.
Yeah.
School's more than 2
yeah,
floors.
but that's been
There's roofs and stuff.
yeah, but middle's one of our it's not a newer building. I mean, when we do Memorial, coupled with the fact that when you actually and Sin, help me guide me on this one, when you the New Jersey Department of Education has standards that they want us really to adhere to, and that really does not include 2-story buildings being built from scratch. They really do encourage us.
They encourage 1-story buildings.
Yeah.
And they look at it also from a security point of view, because once you go up to levels and stuff, you lose too, so.
But I'm not saying I disagree with the fact that if you could rewind the button and build up, you might have more, but milk's out. Milk's out of the jug. To go back to Andrea for a second, conferences, thank you very much for the positive feedback, and I will 100% look into how we hand conference forms out. James, you asked about, is there a bigger picture, about why, and I think I kind of hit on that one. Alex and Gloria. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'll talk about it generally, that when any staff member goes out on an approved leave, they always have rights to come back, always. Now, where we put them is our managerial prerogative. I am familiar with the situation that you're talking about. However, if the teacher comes back in December-ish, it typically is that teacher's classroom, unless there's a really good reason for it not to be. I don't want you to think that I'm not minimizing the feelings of children. What I will tell you is that children at the younger levels, they love to be in school, and our teachers love to be around children. So I will make sure that if there is a transition back, that it's not only smooth and as seamless as possible, but it is just, unfortunately, it is part of the way that school districts work. This is, I believe, a tenured employee, and they have a right to a job, but where we put them is up to us. But I will sit down with Mr. Stradek again and make sure that I understand the plan, along with Dr. Hart, to make sure that we have the best plan in place and that it's well communicated. The question from Mary is why 28 classrooms? The board took a look, and we took a look at the height of our enrollment at 6,000, and the 28 classrooms would not just have been homerooms. It would have been our pre-K. It would have been everything from music to art to OT to PT, and really looked at the design of the building that would fit 6,000. And that was for a couple reasons. The difference between 22 and 24 and 28, I don't want to say it was negligible, but it almost was. And if you're going to go after a new building, the thought process was to not have it be like Memorial was, where we opened up and went right to capacity. Cindy, you spoke about a lot of things and being in favor of full day K.
No, you have to wait the second session. You can't. You can't.
It was a good effort, though. So, yeah, I'm still on. Yes. So KCP money. So, Sin, help me on the roughly. We generate about $500,000 in revenue from our complement program. Sin, out of that money, what's left after we take care of business, so to speak?
Well, you don't, because what that money is that it's not a dollar for dollar type of thing. You have your revenue over here and you have your expenses over here. So that $500,000 that we got from KCP is part of the revenue piece of it. It's not a one, they don't pay for each other. So you don't put in one thing and get this. So, and then there is no way to put that money aside and hold it for something else. You can't do that. Legally, we're not allowed to. So it comes in and it's part of our revenue stream. It's like what we when we build a budget, we build it based on the tax levy and state aid, and then you have miscellaneous items, and one of them being the revenue from KCP is our next largest revenue after those first two items.
And let's imagine that we were allowed to placehold it, which we're not.
No.
What that would mean, though, once it's a part of the budget and you take it out of the budget, you create a hole, and you have to fill that hole. So what it would have meant is that $500,000 would have been cut from somewhere else. And even though we have over a $90 million budget, $500,000 is still a significant amount of money. But we couldn't placehold it and put it anywhere else. As far as technology and languages instead of air conditioning, what I will say is, if you think of the capital improvements and specifically the HVAC out of 100%, 100% got you the H, the V, the A, and the C. 80% got you the H and the V. So for the 20% difference, you could have air conditioned essentially the entire district or the entire district. And when the board discussed that, it really didn't make sense. And I kind of give the analogy of open heart surgery, because when you decide to, when you do this kind of renovation on a building, you're tearing out every nook and cranny to not put the other 20% in my opinion, and I know I don't live here, it's only my opinion, is short-sighted. Because at that point, if you're going to do something, go the whole way on it, and it's not as if it was a here to a here, it was a here to a here. And it really didn't make any sense to not do that. I think it was Fareed. I think that was your first name, right? Fareed. You talked about, being concerned with technology and foreign languages. I agree. And I agree that our foreign language, especially at the elementary, can get stronger. But with technology, I think we are incredibly strong. We are. And honestly, the only thing that we really could do that make us significantly better with devices is some more iPads at the kindergarten level. Other than that, we are fantastic. I mean, we have, every first grader has a tablet and everybody else has a Chromebook. All of our middle school kids had the opportunity of,
I just wanted to add something to what Dr. Hibbs was saying. In terms of the air conditioning costs, I think you just said 20%.
Yeah.
That's prior to the state giving back whatever money they were going to give towards this project. So we figured out very roughly was that the air conditioning would have actually cost only 12%. So I just wanted to kind
with the 40% back.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
With the 40% back, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha. Good point, Craig.
Let me jump in also with that is that if you didn't put it in and then at some future time you wanted to do it, you're going to be paying for the engineer, the time, everything. You're going to tear it all apart again. When you've got it opened up, let's just open it up, do what you've got to do and put it into place, because it's much more efficient to do that than to do it piecemeal, so to say. I didn't say a word.
But yeah, but as far as technology goes, I want to be just really, really clear. We're rock stars. We really are. And we're only going to get better.
There isn't a kitchen in the cafeteria.
Are we talking about Abbott as it currently exists?
Yes.
No, after there's going to be no kitchen. It's a warming kitchen. It's not a cooking kitchen.
What was the kitchen? The plans for Abbott included a kitchen, correct?
No, they're not. According to
Honestly, it wouldn't be a full-blown kitchen. It would be probably just
Warming? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Full-blown kitchen.
It's not like
cooking.
bells and whistles.
Yes.
No fluff. It was just a warming kitchen.
Yeah.
It's just
Basically, the design of the building was
It's enough to serve them food.
the minimum that we needed to take care of the kids in a
Oh,
proper
yeah.
way for a full day
Oh, yeah.
program. Because the program as it is now is 2 half days, totally different requirements
Yeah.
to have a full day.
I'm not discounting the $46 million, but the plans that were, you might not like the number of classrooms, but that was done with purpose in the fact that we didn't want to be at a spot down the road where we build it for 20 classrooms and all of a sudden we had more kids back to the 6,000 and they couldn't fit, or that class sizes would go to into the 30s. So the thought process was to put 20 on, looking ahead to the future. But that addition that would go, we're not talking waterfalls and the indoor swimming pool where you're waiting. I mean, it was a normal addition, all the while not discounting the fact that it was $46 million. But I'm not disagreeing. But what I'm saying is that there weren't no bells and whistles.
What would be the price, right?
Okay. Any other we caught up?
No, we're caught. We're caught.
Okay. We'll continue the referendum discussion.
Wait a minute.
What?
How does that how other places have done it? Manalapan did raise their taxes.
Cindy, Manalapan, when Manalapan did this, I think they went after all their bank cap, right?
Yes, they did. They threw it all in, plus the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
they did raise taxes.
Oh yeah, they just didn't. Yeah, they didn't through. So Manalapan, would it benefit to explain what bank cap is? Does anyone not know?
It might not have been as transparent, but they did raise the taxes.
If every year the Board of Education has the opportunity to raise the levy, the tax levy 2%, in essentially a 3-year window, if you don't use that 2%, you can go back and simply take it. Manalapan did that. So did they go to the taxpayer on a bond referendum where they got some back? No way. They didn't do that. What they did was they just took it and whacked them around the head. And that's the way that it went. And look, Manalapan is not perfect. It's not. And our way would not be perfect either. But to this board's credit, even though Abbott, was only generating about $140,000, this board was looking to get back about approximately $10.6 million on, from the state of New Jersey to try and be fiscally responsible. Anything that we would do, and I should have mentioned this at the last one. Sorry, when I stood up. If this board would consider, renovating and then figuring out if we could do it that way, there's essentially this year $1.8 million worth of bank cap that we would need to utilize. We wouldn't be able to do that out of our normal operating budget. So to be fully transparent, even if the board decides, look, whatever it is with the referendum and whether it's one question or two, if it is to renovate the classrooms, there's still going to be approximately, or could be, a $1.8 million take back on that money. But there's just simply no other way to do that. You have to then take it to build and then placehold money for the extra staff members that you would need. There, I think I covered everything.
Okay, we'll continue at the referendum.
Yes, sir.
All right, that'll bring us to page 3, financial and business operations matters. We have 2 addendums. Being there were addendums, Cindy, is there anything you want to explain about them before we even read, or is there anything?
Just briefly, the paving for addendum number 1 is for the paving for this parking lot.
Okay.
And it's got some allowances in it. It might not be, the end price might not be what this final bid is. And also, the low bidder on here, the question would be, why aren't we taking the low bidder? He's disqualified because his documents didn't come in with the complete set that was required to be submitted. So it might, and our range, what we had, the price before we had from our previous paving contractor was almost $59,000. So we might come in about that $60,000 range when all is said and done. But the award will be for the $67,000.
Okay.
Okay, and the second one is for the installation of the heat down at transportation. That is desperately
That was a safety
needed.
grant, right?
Yes, the equipment's a safety grant.
Okay. All right. Well, quickly, my reading, then we'll.
Yeah, sorry.
You have it?
Yeah, I do. Financial and business operation matters. The superintendent of the school submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, job description.
Nope, that's the second one.
I have the addendum. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Award a bid, proposal for 2015 paving improvements at the Board of Education Administration Building project. Number 2, award a bid HVAC repair work at the Marlboro Township School District Transportation Department. I so move.
Thank you, Vicki. Seconded by Robin. Discussion on financial business. The only question I have is that, because I called Liz, because I didn't remember when we had talked about this. That's back in July 2014. Just explain me the timeline process. I thought it was already done.
Well, you're saying it's desperately needed, so how is it?
Yeah, well, we got the
desperate as
equipment
it-
through through a safety grant, but
Yeah.
then we needed to have an engineer and design it because we worked with multiple companies to see if they could come in and do it. And all of a sudden, we needed sealed drawings, we needed an engineering design, we needed all of this work done. So henceforth, it's gone its way for a year till we
Okay.
got there. That's why.
And I believe that after being here for 8.5 years.
Yes.
So, folks, when you get on the Board of Education, the first thing you learn is it doesn't work like it works in the real world. In your
No,
house
it does
and your
not.
business.
And we only control 9% of our budget.
Yeah.
And you did tell me that, too. So a quick question on that. So you say this is with a grant? Is that
No, the equipment we bought with a grant.
Okay, so this is going to be...
All the duct work and everything that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Ennie?
Yes.
Mrs. Lou Riddell?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosenwald?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yeah.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Lalansky?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. That'll bring us to policy development. Relations. Craig, am I reading, please?
What are we on, 3 here now? Job
Page
description?
3.
Okay, Superintendent of Schools submits the following resolution for approval. 1, job description. I so move.
Thank you, Craig. Seconded by Joanne. Discussion on the policy development. Anybody?
I guess just to, I'm sorry. Just to reiterate, we're not creating a new position.
No.
Right? We're not overlapping positions.
No, sir.
We're replacing a position with what we think is going to be a more realistic salary to keep whomever it is that is hired for this position.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question with this.
Sure, Robin.
On the experience with the park testing on the job description, it's only been here for 1 year, so.
Yep. Look, at the end of the day, with all the experiences, we're still and we talked about a starting salary of around $60,000. You know, and you asked me to make sure that I picked you out a winner. So they may not have everything.
Okay.
They just may not, and you know we're going to have to pick the best of what we can get, knowing that still 60 is better than 40.
Can I say, we agreed on the 60, but I want to say that the gentleman that left for us is was in the 80s?
No.
No, 68.
68.
In
Yes.
the 70s, close to the 70s. So we still stayed under with what
Yes.
they were getting, but we tried to, and it was
Yes.
it was like $20,000.
And just to be, I want to make sure that I had the right parameters. Is that we didn't decide on a final number.
No.
What was said to me was, Eric, go out and come back to us with a recommended salary.
Thank you. Steve's on the truth, because I was just going to question that 60,000, because I knew that wasn't
Yep.
the number.
No,
we
that's
agreed
what-
upon.
But you're right. That was the
Up to-
range
up
that we
to-
talked about.
was
And
it like up to 60 or something like that?
I think it was.
No.
I mean, to be honest, well, yes, it was
It's
in
in
this.
the air.
It was the 60s.
In the 60s,
Yeah.
okay.
It wasn't up to, it was in the 60s.
Yeah,
Right.
with the direction to pick out the best
Right kind
person
of
for the
person.
job. Yep,
That's
the RKP. You got it. Thank you, sir.
All right, anybody else? Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mrs. Rosenwald?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie?
Yes.
Mrs. Lou Riddell?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Lalansky?
Yes. That'll bring us to our referendum discussion. So I'll open up to the board.
Okay, so I'll be the first to make my statement. My statement is this. Obviously, we all know the referendum was voted down with a 31% to 69%. And my feeling is that this board, as it currently is at the end of its sitting life, or however we want to say it. And two of us are not going to be here next year. And I feel that the new board that will be constituted in a very short while in January will be here, and they should be the board discussing this, and they should be brought rapidly up to speed on everything that this board has the knowledge of, and they should be the board that should be discussing this going forward. This board should not be making these decisions at this time. And because of that, and because of, I feel very strongly about this, I will not be discussing this, and I will not be voting on anything. And I'm just going to sit here and be an observer to this board's discussions.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. I'll tell you how I feel about that when I go. Good.
I was going to say, I like Dr. Hibbs' idea of investigating the labs, computer labs. I do think that kindergarten is vital, especially with the curriculum that is coming forward and continues to be laid on teachers, et cetera, and to accomplish that in a half day is impossible. And like Manalapan, Marlboro can definitely make it perfectly imperfect. I really think that there's things that we could do, and I think that it's something that we need to look into and continue to look into, because I think it's very important.
Thanks, Bob. So, want me to go?
Go ahead.
My personal feeling is I am 100% in favor of a full-day kindergarten. Also, personally, 100% in favor of the repairs and infrastructure improvements that we need. That being said, and with all due respect to the board, I do agree with Mrs. Rosenwald for a couple of different reasons, but overall, I think that the decision to move forward with the referendum should be the decision of the board that takes over as a whole in January. It was apparent to me that the other candidates who run and were elected have stated publicly their views on it, and I think because of that, they should be given the opportunity to vote not as a public taxpayer but as a board member. I think they should be given that opportunity. They were politically endorsed, so I'm assuming that they went through some type of a proper vetting process so that their qualifications were met for people that could make sound judgments and decisions as a board member. So really, because of that, I do agree that the new board that starts in January should make this decision.
Correct. Yep.
I'm actually going to start a little backwards on what Craig just said, and Bonnie. I really disagree with what you both said. We are sitting board members from the second we are on to the second we're off. Unfortunately, Mrs. Cowell has not been here for personal reasons, so there's only one person being changed on this board, and I think that should be taken into effect. We didn't discuss or do anything with our travel, going to something as simple as workshop, because we're still board members. So everybody, if you're a board member from day one till whatever day, you're a board member. You're elected. You need to do what you're set to do. Sorry. I'm okay with imperfect. I'm not okay with 25 to 30 kids in a classroom. So if there's a line between full day and 30 children, I don't know. I think you do need to flesh it out. I think, Cindy, is there a price difference if we do one question or two questions?
No. No, whatever you put on the ballot, whatever you run, that's it.
So I guess, I don't know, are we deciding on something tonight?
Yeah, well, we should, but what's our timeline that we have to decide?
Yeah. I have to let the county know
Okay.
now, like
So-
tomorrow.
By yesterday?
No, I have to give them a letter saying, okay, we're going to have it. Now, is that set in stone? No. And you have until the December 1st meeting to give them the question. I kind of told the town there's a possibility, so it's out there, but I formally have to give them, the county, the letter. But you can pull it back. You can pull it back. If we decide by the
Without losing
December
money?
1st, yes, by December 1st, if we're not going to go through with this, then nothing happens.
So I guess I
Next
would.
date is March for
That's what I was just
a
gonna
referendum.
ask.
The
Well,
next,
yeah.
the next date is March 8th, which you've got to have a 60-day window. You are not going to make it if you push it to January. because the reorganization meeting is January 5th. Okay? Those members would have to come prepared, educated, et cetera, to vote on going ahead with this process.
Okay.
So the next date and I'm not pouring salt in the wound, but being factual is, your next date is September.
It's terrible. So, with all that being said, yes, the public did speak. It was, 70 to 30 approximately. If we have to split it to 2 questions, I'm really up for splitting it to 2 questions. Let the public decide again. I don't think we should have what we put out there to the public. These are our 9s, right? These are our priority projects. Full day K is definitely a priority to our education here. These are all priorities, and I just don't think that we should be holding off on something that we've put out there that it's a 9. And I guess with your full flushing out, you'll have to think about things like redistricting, busing, lunch times, gym times. You may have to come back.
Okay. Let me just, I'll just respond to Bonnie. Bonnie, I'll meet you halfway, because after hearing Dr. Hibbs, and I don't know what Mr. Beginning, but he explained to me, I was on the way home from work, he called me to tell me what he had discovered. The repairs to the buildings, we have an engineering study. They're needed. We know it. The longer we wait, we risk children being in buildings without heat and other problems. Boilers not working, and other problems. That's a fact. That's a report given to us. That's there. If the referendum doesn't pass, we have to deal with those problems as they arrived, as we did last year when Dugan lost heat. We had to fix a piece there. The other piece, Dr. Hibbs is going to need time to, number one, involve engineers, make a study, and they will take us into January. It just will happen naturally. So, and I'm okay with that, because that will be something that will happen in a time sequence that new board members will be here. And that will just naturally happen anyway, because it'll have to go to construction committee. It'll have to then come back to the board. After engineers take a look at it, report to construction committee, and goes back and forth. And you know how long that takes.
Oh, yeah.
So and I don't, as far as the second, having 2 separate questions, once I know in my mind that there might be a plan B, I personally have a problem asking the public to even vote on a big ticket item, because the timeline in kindergarten, we're 2 years out anyway. And if we push it up a little bit more, we're not really, because it's the middle of the year, and we push it to the next one, to a referendum that might pass, might not pass, it's just probably the same time zone of getting it. If it passed the May one, or the May one, it's probably almost the same time
No,
zone.
the next one would be September after March.
But if we move it to March, I mean, if we
did March.
If the question committee came back and a new board sat and everybody said,
Yeah, you're talking 2+
and
years
Dr.
out.
Hibbs said doesn't work, and we had to put the next one out, we're still talking 2 years out.
Absolutely.
If a miracle happens and Dr. Hibbs' plan works, and the new board members with the construction committee all talk and decide that's the way to go, and as Dr. Hibbs said, it's not going to be free, because we can't do that in our budget. And that'll be something the new board will have to discuss, because they'll have to use bank cap.
Yes.
We'll have to. And how much of it? You don't know, because you don't know yet. We haven't an engineer look at anything yet. But it will not be the regular budget. It'll be the regular budget plus some sort of, not all, bank cap. And that's being totally transparent.
Absolutely.
Totally transparent. So I do agree with you. And then the normal time zone will take us there. The building part, we're here to protect our kids' safety and security. It must always come first. And I get the other board members are coming, but to me, in my heart, if they're here for the right reasons, they're not going to, I can't speak for them, but if you're here for the right reasons, you're here to keep the kids safe and secure. And that's what our engineers said we needed. So it might pass, it might not pass, but at least I know where to go bed at night. I did everything I could do to try to get it fixed as soon as possible. I'm for keep the question for the repair of the buildings, because our engineers told us it's needed, and it's needed. I can hold off on the kindergarten because Dr. Hibbs has maybe a plan B, and our other board members will be here to discuss it and decide whether they want to spend bank cap on it or not, if it pays. That's my opinion.
Okay. I have a couple questions. If we split it up into 2 questions, Cindy, and we just went out for the maintenance of the infrastructure repairs, do we still get the 10 million?
Yes.
Okay. My concern is if,
Well, yes.
If it passes.
If it passes, we get the 10 million.
Ooh,
Thanks, Joe.
you corrected Cindy. You're going to pay for that one.
My other concern is if you flush it and we can add on and get the 10 classrooms That's for the numbers now. I'm afraid of what's going on with the township. Possibly, if there's more rentals coming into the township, whatever the township's facing with COA, I don't know what's going to go on. Getting more children in the district. Well, then if those kids come in, and we've only fixed it, put the tape on it to fix it now.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and let me make myself clear. I've been accused of bringing up the township because I'm trying to punch at the township. It's a fact about COA. It's not me trying to punch over at the township, whatever. It's a fact. There's rentals out there that we do not get money from as taxpayers. They do not pay any tax dollars in. The township gets all the money. We get none of the money. So we have to supply a safe and secure buildings for these children that come in, and we have to provide kindergarten, if we have it, for these children on our dollar, in our budget. No help from the township. So I need to make that clear. I'm not punching at the town. I'm trying to make it clear and be transparent that that's what's going on. I agree with Mrs. Rosenwald. She beat us to the punch. That I think the new sitting board should make the decision. They ran on that we were in the wrong direction. They ran that this board had not flushed everything. And I took offense to that because we took a lot of time discussing everything over and over again. And we even went to other options of modular buildings and trying different things because we wanted to save. And when people come to us and say, we're the professionals, we think you should do it in one question, we think this is the way it goes out, these are your nines, let's get this done. As I'm not an engineer, I'm an architect, I'm a business owner, you take their recommendations and the recommendations of the superintendent and you do what you feel is in the best interest of the children and in the township. And we put it out there. So I'm looking forward for those people that were vetted to come sit on this board, give us their opinions, put us in the right direction if that's what we need. You know, is it going to put us behind? It might, Eric, and I'm sorry. But I think we need to let them weigh in. They weigh in, they own it. And I'm the first one to say I will relinquish my position on the construction committee, and I offer Mr. Schifferson, I offer Mrs. X, I don't know how to say her name, whoever else wants that position, because I've sat on it for 5 years, and we've donated a lot of time, and we've always asked the questions. We've always come back to the board as a committee. We've always presented it as a committee. This whole board has agreed to move forward. It wasn't just the construction committee people. We had to come back, and the board had to agree how it was done. So the construction committee during the selection was accused of not doing their due diligence. The entire board decided. So I think, I'm sorry, Mike, I think I would have to wait till the new board is seated in January to make the decisions.
Deb?
Sure. Couple of things I forgot to ask. I know you haven't fleshed it out enough to be asking all these questions, but these are things that go through my head. And one of the big questions to me is the integrated classrooms over at Milk.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep them integrated if you're spreading children apart?
We have to do it with purpose,
Okay.
100%.
I know I can't expect answers, but then I'm being concerned here because, look, I don't want to ask the public for money too if we don't need to. You know me, I definitely don't want to do that. But if this is not a realistic view of a 20 to 24 child classroom and keeping our special needs at the level, I mean, we are up there with special needs, and I would hate to take that away from them as well. I don't want to see OTPT done in closets, you know, or
the cart.
You know, I mean, it's.
Well, I mean, okay.
So I'm okay with imperfect. I don't like fluff, guys. I don't want the fluff. I don't care for the fluff. I think, but we have to do it well, creatively, and fiscally responsible. And I'm there with you.
So when we sat down, when we sit down and look at the logistics, and I actually have all the administrators coming, and I'm going to hijack part of Mr. Balloon's curriculum council meeting. Sorry, Michael. Tomorrow, you know, we'll have good, hard discussions on this, you know, assuming that's where the board wants me to be. But if in the end it comes out where there's going to be 32 kids in a classroom with the basic projections that we have, so if you go off of first grade right now, we have 21 sections of first grade. You know, if we try to get to that number and that number looks like we have 32 kids in a classroom, it's not going to be feasible because, in my opinion, you're going to get more than what exists, because people will be coming back at the full day non-cost option. I think at least some will. So I'll have to look at everything. We'll have to look at transportation. We'll have to look at specials. We'll have to look at integrated. We'll have to look at lunches. We'll have to look at classroom alignments, because
Sustainability.
absolutely, because what you don't want to be in my opinion, is cutting the meat so close to the bone so that if you go up a class section, then you're completely out of luck, and you don't, because that results in greater class sizes at other levels. So the only way that I will come back and say this works is if I really do think, and after I've bounced it off of not only our constituents, but also, honestly, other constituents who have been around the block longer than me, that this is a good decision.
Okay, Cindy, if we have to just do one question and we do another question in March or whenever it ends up happening, we pay again.
Correct.
And again.
Every special election has a cost.
Yes.
Yes, there is. And your cost is determined by the number of school districts participating in it, unless you do it at, let's say, the general election again.
Right.
And
Let's go with the highest cost. Ask for the highest cost. If there's no other school districts participating, do you know what that is?
I don't know. I can estimate it's probably about $30,000.
And are we expecting any money from the payment in lieu of taxes program from the township? Are there any expectations of getting the pilot?
Oh, the pilot? No.
No.
Well, that was rumored that.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
well,
I would like to
we
know
all
if that
heard
was
the
just a
rumor, but.
So we haven't got a check for the.
No, I don't have any money.
Okay, as a board, can we request, as a board?
Can we request
Maybe it's
it?
for Mark. Can we
I
request
can write
that?
the letter.
Request, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The pilot program.
Can we request?
The payment in lieu of
Help
taxes
from the
that
town.
they entered with the Camelot developer.
Oh, I see.
And future ones coming.
Let's talk about that in closed.
Okay. And one last question, I think. Yeah. That $1.8 million that Dr. Hibbs was talking about, that's the ending of our bank cap, correct?
No, there's about $200,000 roughly.
No,
right?
the 1.8
Is the ending
all
for this
of it.
year.
It's all of it.
Yeah.
What is ending this year is 1.6.
Okay, thank you.
But that would mean, Sin, that would mean that bank cap is completely wiped.
Yep.
Correct.
Done. Nada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joanne?
Yeah, I just checked the public section mentioned the Monolopan full-day kindergarten open last year, 2014. They basically use the bank cap and the 2% tax levy to have the full kindergarten for Monolopan. So I'm thinking it happened to Monolopan or a neighbor town. Could happen to our Marlboro. So depend on what's the standard. I talking to Dr. Hibbs, I was thinking we try to find all the options, which is the best option. If say we can have the 10 rooms, use the existing building without increase the basic tax, the hiking big tax increase. I think we should have fully investigation, fully study and give us a plan to go see what's the option we can do so. That's what. So this case right now just brainstorms idea. So we really need to know, all the, say we're talking about the classroom size, we talk about cafeteria, the bathroom, right? Talking about how the kindergarten kids with the high upgrade kids, how they can play together, social life, all the things, the factors we can put into together if we can do. This is number one. In terms of the capital, the building, I'm thinking how to the Cindy. We did a study from all the vendors, right? We're talking together.
For our architects.
For architect, right? For the capital, for all the improvement. If we go to second referendum only for capital, do we need have still the same number for the capital, right? Wouldn't do it, right? Even say the new board come in, say next January, the way the number still the same too, right?
Correct.
So what's the big difference between the currently existing board and the new board? It's the numbers the same.
That's pretty much what I said. That
Yeah,
part's the
numbers
same, but
same, and
the other part's different.
Yeah, numbers same because we are, we Elaine as the official, right? We work in the last day, the end of the December. So our these terms, right? We have all the, we put our time to study to what's the best for our student or for our taxpayers. The two factors we need to take a consideration. Now the political party on the side, I don't, that's we try to get it down. What's the best for our town, for our tax? What's the best for our student? That's what I try to say. If we can do something.
Got it.
I just got confirmation that I can actually bring this up. When the pilot program was being talked about and it was discussed that we do not benefit from that tax program, I got confirmation, as I said, in the shared services that we do with the town, there are some circumstances where the town gives us services that they don't necessarily bill us for. And in one of the services, we receive salt from the town that they don't bill us for. And if they would bill us for salt, we would have to pay them. And there are other services that if we could, it might not be balanced. So there are things that all the board members might not know about. So it doesn't always balance out. So we might not get taxes from the pilot program, but we receive shared services. And maybe it would be better for the town, and I'm not necessarily an apologist for the town, but because I do, and I am sit on so many committees for the town, I have this knowledge, and it sometimes is hard for me to separate the two, and it bothers me. And it would be better for the town if they would sit there and bill us, and I've said this many times, bill us for the items that we use, such as the salt, and then come up with a formula to give us the taxes from the pilot program. And I have said this numerous times, so that we would not have this imbalance where it looks like they're not giving us money from the pilot program because they give us other things. And so that this imbalance doesn't look like it's happening.
And that's something the board would never have.
Knowledge of, but because I sit on other committees and I do other things, I have this knowledge.
We don't pay
No, we don't pay.
Does any Board of Education of any township pay for that salt?
I have no idea.
Oh, I'm sure they do, Debbie. I'm sure they do.
Well, I don't know. I'm talking from as a board member, not as a town
No, I
committee
thought
person.
the township, our board should be separate entity.
Yep.
The issue should supposed to be.
And I've said that numerous times.
Right. So
That they
it's
should
our
bill us for
concern.
the salt and they should work this out.
Not they say I think the
Well, I
township.
think it's good enough for
All right.
Cindy to look into. And
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. All right, folks, we have three, we need to know which direction we're going. So I guess we have three options here. We go with the two questions again in January. We go with only the, well, actually four options. We go with only the building improvements, we go with only the kindergarten, or we go with, as Mr. Dean asked, no questions at all. So, and we talk about it with the new board members, and Bonnie said as well. And I guess Dean said so. I said my piece. Anybody else before we ask the board?
Yeah. Also, sorry, question
Sure.
that I didn't finish it. I'm not sure which organization will have this. Every year, do we have forecasting? Say, how many number of students we're going to increase?
We do that.
Someone who do the forecasting, like say, every year with next year what's going to be based on current plan. Do we have that?
We do.
I just did it.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally, we talked about it no less than a week ago, and we're basically flatlined. There are, and it's teacher-wise. So, in other words, numbers of sections did go up and down in different places, but overall, the number, I think Cindy was right on the same. The number of teachers was the same.
Number of teachers is the same. Number of students is probably going to be where we're at, if not higher. And I mean, I literally just did it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were off 3 days last week. So, yeah, so
yes.
and I've got to look at that because I think what we did was, there's a whole process that I have to go through I work off of live I work off of current enrollment, et cetera, and stuff. And and I've done this for years with Dr. Gasworth and stuff. It's a process that we worked with our demographer years ago, and that's how we developed the whole thing. So we go through this, and then we've got to look at what's going on and what's trends. But to go to Mrs. Dean's point, the anomaly in this is Camelot. And we've got to take that into consideration and other ones that are going to be popping up. So,
and 100% filled.
What?
Camelot's 100% filled.
So, look, the bottom line, Joanne, to your point, because this question came up a lot in all our town hall meetings as well. How do we know we need 28 classes? When they're going to be filled? We knew they weren't going to be filled day one. This discussion really needs to happen when Dr. Hibbs comes back with his plan and tells us really how many classrooms he has and how comfortable the board is, how far in the future that will take us. We've heard from the community that the tax dollars right now to build the 28 classrooms for the future, it's not going well. We heard that it's a big ticket, it's a lot of money. No doubt about it, Joanne. If we do Dr. Hibbs' plan, down the line, another board is going to have to figure out how to have more kids in kindergarten. And sooner or later, one day it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But right now, we're asking to fix our buildings. There's only so many dollars in people's pockets. We're asking to fix our buildings. If there's a plan B, is why I said what I said before. And Dr. Hibbs called me today, and I was on the way home in the car, and he said that. I was almost jumping out the window because he came up with an idea for plan B that maybe we can get by. And if it's 3 years down the line or 4 years down the line when another board sits here and has to deal with more kids coming in at that point, maybe the economy will be better, maybe it won't, maybe the public can handle it. But we all asked them to handle a lot for doing both projects. We know, because you made your point about our engineers came in, told us what needed to be done. We know the buildings need to be fixed, doesn't change in January. You made your point, and that's the same point I made. We don't know yet, Dr. His full plan. We can't answer the question of how many classrooms we're going to need, how much room is going to be, how many kids are going to be in the class until he comes back with his full plan, which it's going to take a little while because we haven't even got to the engineers yet to tell us what's feasible, what's not feasible, so he can get to tell us what it's going to look like. And at that point, it'll be after January. The new full board will be here and discuss whether or not they want to use bank cap or not, if it's even feasible, and how many kids are going to be in the class. We want to do it.
Yes.
I mean, benefit. I'm seeing forecasting for next year. Do we have forecasting for 3 or 5 more years, like the range? Because if Dr. Hibb says his plan to use the facility, how this we cannot say only for next year, right? At least for the old elementary school, we can. It could be 3 years. We don't know for the 2, 3 years. We have at least we have the certain short term in the plan. Say this can be at least 2, 3 years, right?
The short-term plan is not. It's not at a zero cost.
No.
It's going to cost, and then if we come back out, said, okay, well, we patched it, and now we need more, and we need more. Now you're going to have to build anyway. They're going to go, okay, you just patched it.
Well, that's what discussion we're going to have in January.
Water heater.
I can give you a seat I can give you a row in the ballpark, sorry, as opposed to a seat on that one. Because, look, even though we have a demography study, doesn't mean it's 100% on the money. And honestly, looking where we were and what we were forecasted to be under where we are right now. So what I will do is based upon those 10 rooms and what we could do at Abbott, we will look and see what the approximate class size is, and then we'll look at trends over the last couple years, how many children have entered and what would it look over the next. But that's what we can do is give you a forecast. No, look, if we sit down and it comes back where it's 30 kids in the classroom now, the discussion's over. It really is, because you're not going to want to do that to our children, and knowing that we're going to go up. So in order for me to answer that one fully, I need a little more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
I think the other thing that, to go back to what Mr. Lalansky said, that if not doing this now and 3 to 5 years from now, you're going to have a better idea of how many kids are going to be coming in. Also, remember, we're not getting aid for the kindergarten because we don't have unhoused kids. By that time, we could very well have unhoused kids.
So we have this full day kindergarten now, and our needs increase, we'll get if it's available at that time, we'll get that money back from the state.
But even with the patchwork, you're going to lose a whole year, aren't you? How soon?
It will not.
Even with the patchwork,
there's
we're
no
going to.
way.
So you're going 2-3 years out. Okay, now we're going to only be 2 years out.
That's the discussion we'll have in January.
Well, that's why I'm saying we should wait for the board in January.
That's what. I agree.
For that part of it, I should wait. But I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to, in all respect, Debbie, we're trying, or even Joanne, we're trying to push our responsibilities off as board members. Because if anybody knows me that I've sat on this board, I've never done that. And I don't think, my year with I'm not pushing my responsibilities off as a board. But the town spoke. They spoke. It was out there. And to be transparent, I don't want anybody to think that we did not weigh all our options and be transparent. And I would not want the new board members to feel that we were not transparent and we did not give them a chance to weigh in on it and voice their opinion.
Especially because their opinion has been contrary to what we have been talking about. That's why, personally, I feel that this should wait for them to get on so that they can make a decision as a board member. That's my feeling.
Okay.
That was my.
Can I just add a little bit to that? That's why we're having this in public. If the new board members, and one being Robin, want to discuss this, we have 2 public sessions for it to be discussed. And I just think when we get handed a comprehensive study this large, and we pick out our 9s, that this can't wait.
Yeah, well, okay, well, that's why I'm going to poll the board now.
So,
that's
with that being
go
said,
ahead.
I'll tell you how I feel after hearing everything. And if
Okay.
Dr. Hibbs feels like this is a feasible discussion on our new Plan B, I'm all for doing the one question and waiting on K. Although I'm very disappointed because our referendum talk started because of full day K.
Okay.
So,
Hey, Deb. Okay, so this is the order. I'm going to ask the board to raise their hands. You agree it? First question will be if you agree that you want both questions on the referendum again. Second, I'll ask if you want just the building improvements. The third, I'll ask if you want kindergarten. And fourth, I'll ask if you don't want any questions at all. Hold off on the whole shebang.
At what point, though, when you say this?
Right now.
Right now, okay.
Well, could I just?
Yeah, sure. Because that's somebody else.
You're just going to go around the room.
No, I'm going to ask the representative. Raise your hand up. Is that the right way to do it, Mark?
No.
No.
Could
Okay, public session. You
Could I just ask, could I just say something, just real fast?
Well, as public session's almost there.
Could I just ask could I just ask you, just be real
We already
fast?
had our first public comment session. We'll have it shortly.
Sorry.
Real fast?
Sure.
Real fast. I just want to make it clear. I years ago, when we did the kindergarten complement program, at that time, I was an advocate of full-day kindergarten. Everybody knows it. I wanted it yesterday. I fought for full-day kindergarten. This has always been my fight because education has always been very important to me, my family. It's very sad. I have to take a deep breath. That I'm going to be leaving this board and I haven't achieved that goal.
Thanks, buddy. All right.
Wait a second.
Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry.
I have to take a deep breath. Kids are going to be coming into this district. I know that I sold my house in one day to a family that has a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And they're going to want kindergarten. They came into Marlboro wanting kindergarten. He's a Marlboro kid that wants to come back to Marlboro, and he wants kindergarten for his kids, and we don't have it, and we might not have it. And it bothers me tremendously that we can't, as a board, pull ourselves together and get them kindergarten. As much as I fought for the 28 classrooms, and I was the one who found the mistake originally, and I said we have to go back to the heyday of Marlboro, because I know it's going to be coming, because I had multiple people who were going to bid on my property. it's coming, and the people across the street sold their house, you know, and at one point they had multiple people bidding on their property. Marlboro doesn't have a lot of properties there for people to buy that are viable. And it is what it is, guys. They're going to be coming, and Marlboro is a housing that is, it's going to explode here again. And we have to figure out what is going to happen here, what's going to be viable, and we have to do it the right way. And hopefully the next board will put their heads together with the superintendent and do it the right way.
All right.
Go for it, Mike.
Okay. Well, we'll do the obvious one first. Anybody in favor of the going for both questions in this referendum? Repeat of the first referendum all over again? See nobody.
What's the proposal? Sorry.
The two questions again.
Uh-huh.
Two questions again all over again. The same referendum again. That's anybody? I didn't think. Number one. The second option was just going with the building improvements only and waiting for the new board members to come on, and Dr. Hibbs' review to talk about how to maybe implement kindergarten and maybe still do a referendum later if that doesn't work. So if you're in favor of just the one question for building instructions, I'm just polling now. We're not voting formally, so it's just a poll. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody in favor of only going for kindergarten only on this referendum? And in favor of no questions whatsoever and skipping the referendum?
Until the next board.
Till the next board?
Whenever. We're just talking about this vote now, but next board decides, we can't vote, we can't talk what the next board's going to do. We can only talk what we're doing now, which is, if you don't want to do any questions.
Do nothing, basically.
Do nothing now.
Defer to a future period of time.
They have to decide what they do.
I
We
want
can't talk
to
with them.
the next board.
Right, so that would be
That's
this.
a do nothing.
That's do nothing.
Do nothing now till the next board.
That's what I just asked. So that's 1, 2, 3.
So that means you should, you got 5 votes to do the capital projects piece,
Yep.
and you're going to need a formal resolution on, I guess, your next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Andrea's ready to go with it.
Okay. Okay, and then, as said, Dr. Hibbs will come back to us, and they'll have to go through the construction committee.
Yes.
And those board members that are on at the time, and come back to the board, follow a process, and either that goes through, or that next board decides what happens. So that the timeline will dictate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Mr. Schifferson? I welcome you to the board. I just want to say, I welcome you to the board,
Okay.
because I don't want anybody to think I have anything against the board members coming on, because I don't. And I only speak for myself, not the board or committee I sit on. But if you would have ran on your own 2 feet, sir, you are respected in this town. You are a principal for 30-plus years. You would have gotten in. And I welcome you, and I welcome your expertise. And I hope we could shake hands and move forward. We were always kind to each other when you were a principal and I was a board member. I have nothing against you. So that was where my vote is. It's nothing against you personally, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, old business. Anybody have any old business? Anybody have any new business?
You're always good for new business.
Am I?
You are.
Really?
Pick that candid.
Well, my son is a star Friday and Saturday in Cinderella. I had to bring up Memorial.
Good stuff.
Memorial's having Cinderella at
Yep.
7 p.m. Friday and Saturday, $5 a ticket. And we're also doing the Hunger Challenge, so if people can bring in cans of food. And I do have a second new business, so I guess you're right. This is a terrible time to ask, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Nice lead in.
Listen,
Yeah, really.
I have to ask because I have parents asking me, and one email came through.
No, I'm not canceling Halloween for next year, the parade?
No,
Okay.
not that one.
Okay, sorry.
Are we going to have Christmas cups? No.
There's actually, this is a kind of a two-way question, and that was for middle school parents asking, since they're paying so much money to do sports and after-school clubs and activities, if it would be feasible for someone to look into getting back an after-school bus if the parents can pay $10 extra per. That's what they want to know. So I'm throwing it out there. If it was feasible, if it was done this year, how much extra would it have been? I know you can't answer. I'm just throwing it
The
out
cost
there.
for the bus overall is about now probably close to $100,000.
The problem is that you'd have to get people to commit being in transportation.
Right.
A bus with 10
Would be
people
a
in it
year-to-year thing.
versus a bus
Right.
with 32 kids in it is a big price difference per person.
Plus
So
also
you
people
would know
don't
that,
like
you
the
know.
taking 30 minutes. I mean, we could do this but you're going to be on a bus for an hour trying to go all over town and
Look
stuff.
at it. It wasn't feasible.
I would
'cause
say the diabetes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We looked at it, yeah.
I would to diabetes point. I'm for the my husband we all full time. I have a full time job around the town from elementary school to middle school. A lot of people do have the needs. If the parents are willing to pay for, can we do this? That's why I'll have the same question to echo for diabetes too on this.
We did have this whole discussion, but I'll be happy to have it
We
again
have.
if everybody
We
wants to
have,
have it.
but-
We had that discussion once.
But the question is, they're going to pay the full freight of the bus, or
No, parents can contribute something.
But the rest comes out of our budget.
The rest comes out of the budget.
Yeah.
That's why we took it out.
Let me. How about this? What if we? You asked the question, so we can then tabulate how many children actually were.
Here's your problem.
At least we have an
Here's your
answer.
problem is that you have to commit 100% to that bus.
So you pay for it. You have to
Yeah.
Yeah, you pay the.
And you have to take, don't you have to take the contract for a whole year?
Hey,
You can't just do
yeah.
it, okay, we don't need it to half.
Hey
it
gang,
has to be the
why don't we
whole
put this? Let's put this on an agenda.
Yeah.
Let's gather some data so we can because we
I'm not
could
saying
we could
it's
speculate.
feasible.
Just give
I'm
her a
just
number.
saying
That's,
that-
that's what she's
You
asking.
can't get a
That's
number.
about $100,000 for a
No,
bus.
we did this, we did
was
this.
years ago.
What happened was,
Several years
just
ago.
to refresh the board's memory, we had done this. And what happened was, when we sent out the survey, we found out how much it would cost, and we told the parents the kids would sometimes have to sit on the bus for 45 minutes to an hour, and then parents started to drop off, and then it was not feasible because we couldn't fill up the buses. The kids would have to sit on the bus longer, the cost went up, and they would have to commit to the entire year, and the parents didn't want to do that. They only wanted to commit for a specific season, they only wanted to commit for a specific period of time, and you can't do that. They had to either commit for the entire year, and then if they dropped out, so they would pay for the entire year, and then they would only the kid would only be on for the sport. Then the other children would have to sit on the bus longer.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't feasible at that point.
No, I'm thinking, does she bring about to this year? Because the demographic would be changed year by year, right? For the time for a few years, right?
But the problems still were the same.
Still the same
The
problem.
problems still remain the same.
And that's fine. Dr. Hibbs, I was just wondering if you could put some numbers down so at least we could give it to
Right,
people
right, right.
instead of just saying, well, 10 years ago we
And then
discussed
you could
this.
think way outside of the bus.
wasn't
and you,
10
and you
years
could
ago.
I know it wasn't.
And you could
because
put
I was saying
Wi-Fi
that
on the
was
bus
discussed.
for the long ride home, and they could use their Google Drive to do their homework.
Because they take
And
showers.
I'm not really jesting, because there
about
are places
Uber?
that do that.
Well, Uber then.
No, the thing is, like we have school club, like the
Buses
old
have Wi-Fi, they could do their.
Listen, you know how long I've been here fighting for that bus, year after year
I
after
know.
year.
The problem is that
I know you
can't get
have.
across-
Don't
you
have
can't
enough
get
home
across
time
this township
and everything else.
quickly and easily. So going from one side to the other.
Okay, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll fit into the budget.
No worries.
Michael, there was a second part to that,
Sure.
actually. And
Sure.
it was probably the reason why it came up was because the sports, I think I've discussed it. Yeah, we did have a discussion on this briefly. Our sports are just not where they used to be. And we have
Can't hear.
soccer that is all of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Numbers.
And other sports that way. 82 children try out and like
Yeah.
18 or 20 make it. It defeats the children. They don't go year to year to try out because it's
Only
like
eighth
a
grade
waste.
kids could
Right.
typically make it.
So
So
if,
how-
if it's
yeah.
looked at, that's fine. I'm just bringing it
Well-
up
Different
because
grades.
that was
Yeah.
Like have a sixth grade,
yeah,
seventh
because
grade.
there are bringing up Manalapan again tonight.
Yeah, but we combined it because other schools didn't have the teams to play unless they.
That was not true anymore.
It's not true anymore.
No,
You know
no,
for sure?
because
But
yes.
this is just an option.
Some
Type
schools
just
are
option.
changing that. Yeah,
Okay,
there-
well, that's
some
changing.
schools also have, for example, our school does a 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We choose to play 8th graders. Although another school can do 6th grade, 7th grade,
Yeah.
and 8th grade, you choose which place, which league, competitive league.
Don't you
you're
always
in.
have to
So
go with the?
how about this,
I don't
gang?
know. Yeah.
Why don't you
It's
let
a
me
must.
come back to you after some research, and I'll sit down with the ADs and look at what other schools are doing, and I'll come back with some recommendations before budget time.
Right.
To be very honest, I think we should just keep an open mind with sports. Just because you cut something doesn't mean it should automatically go back on. And when you look at what sports are, they are nothing to our budget and everything to our children. And not just sports, but also clubs, because there's lots of clubs. So let me come back. I'll come back to you with some recommendations for all levels of our children, not just
I
sports.
appreciate it because and I only bring up soccer only because I know soccer. I don't know
100%.
basketball. I don't know baseball. You know, that's why. So
Middle school had a lot
I'm
of
just
kids.
bringing
Well,
it up.
and baseball is even worse. Baseball, you only play 9.
Because I pick up my kids to the club, so we have so many parents get out of work. For a few minutes, get the kids out, and go back to work again.
Yes.
So a lot of parents asking now that that's why give the option to see what's going on.
Agreed.
I'm done with my news.
Look, a bus. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Anybody else with new? Anybody else with new? Okay, for our final public session. Before we start, I just want to tag on to the young lady who mentioned the music programs and the plays. It was so true, because I just want to say before, and I forgot, I can remember, it's my third life after working the Board of Ed, just volunteering at the middle schools, as you've probably seen me before. And I spent 8 years over at the high school volunteering at the marching band. And I saw the same kids go from middle school music and drama to the marching band. And I also saw kids on the marching band field, and unlike, everybody plays, everybody's on the field, and there were children that me and my wife had to help get dressed that get to go on the marching band field and march with everybody else. So that's how important that the arts are, and whether it's music or it's drama or it's clubs, there's something for everybody, and somebody fits in. And those kids follow each other from elementary right through high school. And especially when you're in something like a marching band, that starts before high school. And you're a freshman walking the halls who knows seniors because you went to band camp. So it's just amazing stuff, and they look out for each other. And whether it's a football team or a club or a marching band or the choir, these kids all look for each other throughout the years, and they have each other's backs, just like everybody else. They have a club and someplace to fit in. So I appreciate what you said before. Public session, open any item. Anyone from the public? I just need your name and address, ma'am.
Tell her I'm sorry. She could already.
You were there once.
I just want to say respectfully, okay, I appreciate all the time you spent. I'm donating my time tonight as well, and I'm here to help you make better decisions. I appreciate all the time you put in, but you're making decisions without clear points, and I would like some clarification on whether or not you're voting on full-day kindergarten, or are you voting on full-day kindergarten with an addition to the school? Are we nixing that whole idea? I don't think it's clear. I think in the beginning, the fact that the town voted down full-day kindergarten, I don't know if that's clear. I think they voted down full-day kindergarten with an addition to the school because of the money that was backed up. And so I think that, first of all, before you even proceed, you need to make some clarifications to the public and amongst yourselves as to what exactly the goal is. Secondly, I wanted to ask you if there were any creative ways to get funding from the state if you were not to build on top of the existing school. I'm here to help. That's why I'm here, okay? I know you, it was my first meeting, okay? I've never been here before. I know you have a way or a protocol or so forth, but respectfully, I'm here to help. That's why I'm here. I did not tuck my children in tonight. I don't feel well tonight, but I'm here to help. I didn't have to come, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public wish to address the board?
Good evening, Mark Rosenwald, Gary Drive. Please excuse me, my blood sugar's on the way down right now, so just bear with me a moment. A couple things that were mentioned. Mrs. Dean mentioned about the pilot program. I understand the political ramifications and everything of it, but the fact remains, it's documented, that you get more in real dollars from across the street than you would receive if they gave you cash. It would wind up, money would go that way, not this way, number one. Number two, I think the reason your referendum failed is a couple of fold. Excuse me. You were somewhat disingenuous with the public. The engineering report came back not at $20 million, but at over $40 million. Dr. Hibbs at one of the previous meetings mentioned that it would be impossible to fund the additional $20 million out of budget without drastic cuts to staff and program. Excuse me, say. So in reality, your $40 million referendum was a $60 million referendum with an unfunded $20 million portion. The addition on the Abbott School, or the Abbott Early Learning Center, you received a very small portion of debt service aid because there were not unhoused students there. It was not an overcrowded school by any stretch of the imagination. Dr. Hibbs knows what the rule of 85 is. I know. I don't think anybody except one board member understands what that is at the moment. Perhaps in the future Dr. Hibbs could explain that. By building on Abbott, or proposing a building on Abbott at $20-something million, you gave up $8 million in state aid if you would add on to the existing schools. Now, there is an additional cost. Dr. Hibbs said, the architect said it would cost 1.5% more. Comes to $300,000. So what you did, you traded, you gave up $8 million to save $300,000. That's not good business. Now, granted, these are ballpark numbers, and there's a moving line in there. But your basic premise was wrong. Add on to the schools, 5, 6, however many classrooms, and it would cost you $8 million less approximately. So you had a basic fallacy right there. Also, you never addressed the ongoing costs. And each teacher costs approximately $100,000 between salary and benefits and everything else. 10 teachers is $1 million. You never addressed that. So you have to address these things going forward if you want any chance to pass. Your maintenance on the buildings, I won't go into the past issues, why they came about. A lot of people understand why, some don't. To say the $20 million is 9, everything in there, the $23 million, whatever it is, I think you ought to read that report again. Okay, because you're replacing things that by the textbook say that they're reaching their end of life. Some things definitely are. There are a lot of things that aren't in there. And I can tell you, the electrical panels, that's nonsense. They have to be replaced. You're not increasing the service. You're just replacing the panels. Parts are still made. I have panels that are from 100 years ago that are still serviceable. So that won't flush. I think you got to look a lot closer. I think you need another opinion. Because I don't necessarily, not saying that your professionals are not correct, but I think there are other people out there who might have a different opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cookie.
Anyone else from the public?
Thank you, Cookie.
Mark, did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
I already signed in.
Thank you.
First time.
No, you got to do it the second time because I have to
You
keep
can
a list.
speak first. You can speak first, sir.
Just put your name down because your name's already, your address is already there.
Thank you very much for your valuable time. And, you know, my first meeting, so I...
Sorry, your name again?
Alexander Noskov. I didn't know that you were unpaid. Dr. Hibbs is paid, so... Therefore, you know, I'll address him primarily. I won't.
That's fair enough.
Oh, and 3. 1, 2, 3 paid. No one else paid.
Well, he probably is the most compensated here.
Work it, Doctor.
Go for it.
You're earning every penny that
Yeah.
you
You're
are
earning every penny.
being paid right now. But anyway,
This is your first meeting. He's good.
someone said that you only control 9% of the budget, right? Now, you know, I'm work at the bank, so I have to look at the balance sheets every day, the companies that we finance, my bank. So where is there in public details for the entire Marlborough Township, not Township, Board of Education budget, where I can find all the numbers to the
On our website,
to the last,
We're
to
required
the
to
all
give up the
accounts,
website.
to the details,
not the details.
line items, line by.
No.
No, sorry, but you see, there's the problem. You can hide a lot of
No, you
things
can't.
into the summary, under
No,
the
because
summary.
dollars are still the same.
Dollars are the same. It's just like the U.S. government, right? They spend, you know,
Can you respond at the end?
$1,000 in the toilet, but in the meantime, that money goes somewhere else, right? Area 57 or whatever people believe. But, you know, so there's no line-by-line item on the budget of the Board of Education, no?
Well,
Well, we can't respond until the end.
No,
Yeah, we'll answer
Well,
exactly
that's
what
the
it is.
question. And why are you only controlling 9%? Who controls the other 93%?
91.
Contractual and fixed costs. Oh,
Right.
sorry,
Right.
sorry.
ask all your questions, and then I'll respond.
Okay. You know, my taxes doubled since I moved to the Marlborough Township. Where does all the money go? I mean, I know there's a lot of, not my taxes, half of the township, you know, portion for the township, the other portion for the education, but they doubled, so both of them doubled. Where does the money go? My salary didn't double. I had to take, you know, just like a lot of people in the country, pay cuts to keep my job or collect unemployment. And the last question is about Mrs. McDermott. Again, as I'm going to state that Straddick promised that he's going to keep her. I understand there's a tenure and everything else, but you know, unfortunately, I'm still not happy with your answer. I said I understand you answered that you're going to work with Straddick and on a good transition, but he promised to us that he's going to keep her. So why not keep both of them in the same classroom? That's one of the options. Number two is you got a brilliant teacher. You don't have that many brilliant teachers. Keep her, seriously. You know, you can put what's her name? Sorry, I forgot. Saketi. You can keep Saketi for another position, just like Straddick promised he would give her another position. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Okay, clarification as to what you moved in. I want to know what you moved in. I want to know.
We have somebody.
Sir, for clarification, what year did you move in? Just for clarification, what year did you move in?
2007.
Thank you.
Is it possible, Mr. Straddick said that we could...
Excuse me, your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gloria. Gloria Servek, 69 Enclosure Drive, 07751. Is it possible to have Saketi, I was told that she could be in another, if she comes back since she's a tenured teacher, to go to a different position, but the only positions open in the school are special education, which she's not certified
We
in.
really shouldn't talk. You have a right to raise your opinions, but the board really should not be discussing personnel in a public arena. So you
Okay.
can certainly voice your comments, thoughts, concerns, but we really can't respond about personnel issues.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to address the board on any item? Sure. You can speak first. You can speak first and then sign.
Okay, my name is still Faini Teresiuk, 193 Nantucket, didn't change. You just kind of ignore me for some reason for whole second part of my big concern about the students, because in order to, we think about their safety, we think about everything we do, but we're killing him right now, and we're killing the kids by, by doing that to them, and I think that's very important, so we can talk a little bit about to do something to, I don't know.
It was.
It was a testing.
It was more of a statement.
I mean, well, no offense, there was no question there. 2.5 hours is not acceptable, at any grade level. So I'd have to look into it specifically what it is. Look, if you're talking about intrinsic nature, and it's your son, correct?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about only my child. I'm talking about overall what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, we talk about the system. We talk about overall about having 5 days in 1 week, having 2 tests in the same day for 9 years old. I'm talking about, again, having opportunity for them to learn, to do mistakes in the test, go home, think about it, do corrections, come back, talk about with the teachers, bring their strong point, maybe give them points for working. I'm not talking about what I don't like, and as I say, I'm a teacher, I'm a high school teacher, and for me, it's most important that my students learning other than the numbers, because the numbers does not say anything. So when my students doesn't do good on the test, and especially my good kids, I do give them opportunity to think about it, we talk about it, and I don't see the big deal. I don't think it's because of my students have a few careless mistakes. My students has to be in jeopardy of having the average from 100 to 90, and now my 10 years old, and not only they all talk to each other. It's not my kids. My kids come home last year after the district reading test, because that was determined if he's going to be in C level, and cry for 2 days telling me that look for a private school, because if I'm not making C level, I'm not going back to school. You know why? Because my friend's going to think I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. And I don't think they have to talk about this. And it's not only my child. I'm talking about, we all kind of together. Those are the kids who've been together since first grade. In Reach, Mr. Schifferson knows my son very well. I mean, we've been in Reach since kindergarten. And he's very fast. It's not that he's dragging the time, but when each separate teacher give each assignment, which is required 30-40 minutes, and he's not going to just do it. He's going to sit down and put his thoughts into it. It's absent of the time. And I'm asking, do we really want to do that to our 10 years old? Is that much important at this age? Okay, and I'm talking as an educator, that's number one. And number two, again, what we try to achieve, we only strike for the numbers. There's no room there for the kids to learn, so we're telling them mistakes are not okay. You're not learning from the mistake. If you do mistake, you're done. If you do bad on one test and you get 60, that's it. Your average right now in report card is 92. And as a teacher, I cannot do anything to you because I'm not allowed to do anything for you. Again, the second trimester, you have to work double hard to get 100 to average up. And I don't think it's fair that my child is not going to end up in honor program because he's just being a little careless boy when he take a test. And when he has a bad day, he just doesn't look. He can do any algebraic equation in his head, but he's a child. And I don't think that's fair. And unfortunately, that's our system right now. We don't give them any room to think about it, to learn from their mistakes, and to proceed with their mistakes. What we do to them is that we tell them, you do bad on the test, your average went down, too bad. And that's what it is.
All right, thank you. We'll respond. Anyone else? Sure.
Jill Strafasi, 25 Community Woods Road, Marlboro. And I wasn't going to speak again, but with all due respect, sir, everyone has that's what's great about this country. Everyone can get up and speak, but I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't come and object to one statement you said, which Marlboro doesn't have a lot of brilliant teachers. I have a daughter who's now in 9th grade at one of the county special magnet programs, thanks to the Marlboro teachers. I have an 8th grader who's applying who has an excellent chance of getting in, thanks to the Marlboro teachers. I have a 4th grader who also loves her teacher, and I have a 4-year-old who's very excited to come to Dugan. I'm so sorry you're having an unfortunate experience, but you'll see as you go through We have phenomenal teachers in our school district. So I just had to say that because these teachers, they work all day, and a lot of them watch this video. And I didn't even know they did, but they said, "Oh, Mrs. Trafasi, I saw you." You know, they're watching this, so it would really bother me if they didn't see someone come and speak in their behalf. So, but I hope things resolve well for you. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Okay, seeing none. I want to start with the testing.
As far as testing goes, we have specific time requirements right now. Outside of those time requirements, we have online programs and reading. My personal philosophy is that I don't like that. I don't like the fact that a fourth grader can sit for 2 hours. I think it's ridiculous. I think that we pile on them in a day and they go home for an extra 2 hours. I don't like it. So we are going to examine it 100% when it comes to those types of issues to make sure that our youngest learners aren't going home with 2 and 2.5 hours worth of homework, and that does not include studying. So that's my philosophy on how much work is going home. I do believe that homework that should go home. Yeah, guys, let me just speak, please. It's okay. It's hard to talk when I do apologize. I got ears going on. As far as homework goes, it should be relevant and rigorous. And, often in the Hibbs household, I'll see a ditto that has 2 sides, and question 1 on one side is the same as question 1 on the other. And I fundamentally just don't understand why. So can we get better on certain things? And that's not saying that our teachers, who are wonderful and do work hard, we all can get better. I can get better. Mr. Olansky will tell you that he can get better because he's a humble man, and we all can. So when it comes to that, as far as testing goes, yes, there are some kids that will have tests on 2 days. That's just the way it's going to be. When we looked at the grade books and the amount of assessments that occurred over the last few years, Marlboro just, unfortunately, in my opinion, had a view of putting 5 grades in a grade book. And in my opinion, that's not okay. It's just not. Because what happens is that before you'd have one test worth 60% of a grade, and you spoke about, a quiz lowering. Imagine what a 65 on one of those tests did if you only had 5 grades in the grade book. So life is not all about assessment. It's absolutely not. Do we have to constantly measure where kids are? Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. Do I agree that there should be learning opportunities for children? 100% every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Absolutely. Are there times when you won't get a second chance at something? There are. And to say that every child should have an opportunity to redo on everything, it's not life. It's not. And I'm not saying it's not what's best, or it's not a great philosophy, but you don't always get 2 bites at the apple. You don't. Are there times that teachers, and we have great teachers, that will give kids learning opportunities? Mr. Balone? The answer is absolutely. Correct? 100%. Will it maybe happen on a common assessment? No. It may not. But it really is not real life to say to a child, everything you do, you can redo. Now, should we always have that philosophy? Yeah. But there's plenty of times. I before I got the job in Marlboro, I was on a couple other interviews, and I walked out of there, and you know what? There were a few questions I didn't do well. And you know what I didn't get? I didn't get the job. But I learned from that. So, at the end of the day, will they always get that second chance? No. But a lot of our teachers do give that second chance. Yeah, I mean, we had a whole grading. Yeah, we had a whole grading committee that was administrators, teachers. Sorry. Administrators, teachers, special education, regular education, board members, and we really revised the grading buckets along with a number of assessments. So I want you to know that I hear you on the 2 to 2.5 hours. Absolutely, and it's not just you. We've heard from others who may or may not want to be named, but it absolutely comes up, and it's something that I feel that I've expressed to Mr. Balone that we'll look at as a district, 100%.
Let me hit the full day K. You done with that one?
Yeah, go for it. Take full day K.
So the full day K. So where are we? And I also want to address how we got here real quick, because Bonnie mentioned years ago, we talked about full day K. But to get full day K, you need administration that supports the board that wants full day K. So when Dr. Hibbs came on, one of the first things he made Agenda 2 was see how to get the full day K. If you go back in our videos, and there's plenty of them online, there's plenty of them that go from 8 o'clock at night till 1 o'clock in the morning as well, you'll see multiple videos where we discuss over and over again, ways to do it, ways not to do it, how we could do it. Dr. Hibbs reporting back to the board. So we didn't get here in a vacuum. We also didn't get here without commenting to the public. We had many nights with some people that are here tonight were at where we had the public forums on the 2 referendums. We spoke about the full day K. We had the meetings here at night where we had the presentations over and over again about the full day K. So where are we? Where we are tonight is, Dr. Hibbs, you heard the presentation you started the board meeting off with. All new news to the board members, as well as the public. With this new information, the board, in its due diligence, now you heard, has decided to hold off on making any decisions till Dr. Hibbs can make a formal study to see if this is feasible. What does that mean? So right now, it's in a holding pattern. It's a holding pattern. He comes back to the board. By that time, as Mrs. Rosenwald originally stated, and Craig and Vicky said as well, the new board members will be seated on the board, and the new board members, along with that board, sits at the time, will hear back from Dr. Hibbs, because it will take time. There has to be engineers involved now. There has to be studies with him and his academic teams to decide, and that goes through the construction committee as well before it comes to the board, because it involves in construction. So it will take time to January. At some point in January, if you stay tuned and you come to the meetings, you'll hear a presentation back to Dr. Hibbs again, back to the board with the construction committee's recommendation on what it looks like.
Yep.
And as Dr. Hibbs said, if it looks like too many kids in the class and it's not educationally sound, he's going to come back and tell the board that, and that board at that time will have to just make a decision. That can't be tonight because we don't have the facts. It can't be tonight. That board at that time will have to make a decision, as well as if he says do it, that board will still have to make a decision how much bank cap, how much is that worth, and what we're going to charge the public for that, because we only have so much bank cap, and it may cover it, and it may
Worth the
not.
bank cap, yeah, it can cover it. We don't even know if it can.
We don't know, because we don't know what that is. So that's where we are. It's a holding pattern till Dr. Hibbs comes back with his report to the board at the time, and that's where we are with that. Next.
Perfect. You also asked any other creative ways to get funding. There's really not. We don't qualify for a lot of grant opportunities that other districts would because of our district factor group. And we were getting 40% back on all of the renovations and constructions for the capital infrastructure portions. You okay?
Also, there is no other funding available for facility. No, we didn't max out. If there's no
40% is what we were eligible for.
For construction, you can't. It is. You have to have unhoused students. That's it.
I think she was asking, is there any other grants that we could apply for? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's not grants you can get for facility for construction.
No. It has to be part of the. It had to be part of the referendum for us to get the 40%. There's no one else handing out money.
Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg
are
not giving us money.
No.
That's how Freehold Borough got it. Somebody mentioned Freehold, but that's how Freehold Borough got it, right? Because of a grant of the unhoused.
Freehold Borough got money because it has unhoused students. They're bursting at the seams. They are also a significant different DFG, District Factor Group.
Yeah.
They are one step above,
Abbott.
formerly known as Abbott districts. So they have a different stream.
Okay. Alex talked about where does, other than the 9% go, it's salaries and benefits. It's people. It's 100% people where it goes to. I would encourage.
Right.
What?
In buildings too. I mean, just the regular fixed costs of everything,
it's,
right?
That roughly 85 to what's the actual number, Cindy?
Well, it's 65% for instruction, but you have to look at the mandatory things. You've got insurance, you've got utilities, all those things and stuff. My suggestion to you is to go on our website. There are tons of information. Our 15-16 budget presentation is on there. Go look at it because it explains it, and the information is in there. Our budget is also on the website. The state DOE user-friendly budget is on there.
Yeah.
So it is not to every line item detail because our line items are different in the fact that we do it by schools, but it is still by line item, by category that you can see. It's on there. So go look at it and look at our budget presentation is my suggestion for to start off with.
And Alex, I would encourage you to come to our budget meetings. They'll start in just a little while, and they'll go through 2019. I'm kidding. We'll talk about everything from top to bottom. But I can absolutely assure you that we have never purchased a $1,000 toilet seat. We go significantly cheaper than that.
Can't do questions, sweetheart. Sorry. We don't do questions. Public session's over. Yeah.
That's the rest. That was all the questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Going to read the executive session resolution. Be resolved that in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, the Palmville Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to personnel and legal sections prescribed by NJSA 10:4-12 for the purpose of discussing personnel matters and MTHC negotiations. Anticipated length of time executive session will be 30 minutes, and the action will not be taken in public at the executive session. Be further resolved, the minutes executive session will be released from the need for confidentiality according to NJSA 10:4-12 no longer applies. Seconded by Debbie. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody against? No. Motion passes. I'll make a motion to go into exec. Seconded by Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn to exec. That's my thing.